It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Rene, Ritchie's back. Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay. Look what Rene's got. 4, count them, 4 brand new iPhones. We'll get his reviews. We'll talk about the details. Alex Lindsay will do some calculations. We'll also talk about iOS 15. There's lots of news. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 784, recorded Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. 4,000 Emmys. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by BlockFi. BlockFi's Bitcoin Rewards credit card lets you earn an unlimited 1.5% back in Bitcoin on all qualifying purchases, plus a bonus of $25 in crypto after you make your first purchase. Sign up today at blockfi.com/MacBreak. And by AT&T. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry, it's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. And by Melissa. The U.S. Postal Service processes more than 98,000 address changes every day. Is your customer contact data up to date? Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the weekly news from Mac. Sort of, from Apple. Hey, Alex Lindsay from officehours.global, 090 Media, in his 18th hour of broadcasting today alone.
You missed it. This morning we had Paul Terpstra from Clover on, and they make the Parabolic Mics that you see on football games.
Oh,
so it was an hour discussion about Parabolic Mics and how they work and what they do and how he got into it, and it's something like that.
Those are the ones that look like satellite dishes, but they're very directional, right? So they pick up crowd noise or the crack of helmets against helmets, things like that.
Well, it's kind of the funny part of the story is that there's most of the ones that you used to see were perfect, parts of a hemisphere, right? And they focused it, but they didn't focus very well, mathematically they didn't, And so Fox asked for somebody he talked about it, but Fox asked, they said, Kate, someone figured out if you make it parabolic, it'll focus more on the mic. And they went to the mic owner and the people who make the thing called big ears, and they were like, no, we don't want to make them. The hemisphere works great. And then he was like, I'll make one.
So he's good. He's got a parabolic polar pattern plot for Sennheiser versus his own company, Clover. Clearly, Clover's better.
No, just different. It's just showing that he was showing how at different frequencies those plots are different. He said most of those plots are like 16 kilohertz. He goes, unless you're looking for birds, it doesn't really affect you. So he's showing the different patterns in that area, and he's actually doing his own. He's building his own patterns, like doing the check to figure it out.
That's so cool. That's how nerdy it gets on Office Hours. Officehours.global. Andy Ihnatko's here from WGBH in Boston. Hey, Andy.
Hello. Now, Alex, I realized I was looking at those polar plots via thumbnail, but I really thought that the plot on the left was Squidward. So maybe I'm just...
Yes.
Squidward. It does look like Squidward. Come to think of it. Okay. Very good. That's a SpongeBob reference. That's good. Also...
Thank you for the receipt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know why I know that either, to come to think of it. Also with us, he's back after a 2-week absence. Week 1, he was playing chauffeur. Week 2, he was getting briefed. Week 3, Rene Ritchie comes bearing gifts from youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. He's a streamer.
I'm back, baby.
Oh, my God.
I'm back.
He's got iPhones. You said the Apple sent you all 4 of them?
Yes, I have those. That's the Pro and the...
And lest you think we're being bad, the embargo was lifted hours ago, right? So all the reviews.
I saved one to reopen for us here.
Oh, which one is that? That's the Pro.
So this is the Pro, yeah, and there's no plastic this year, so I don't know what all the ASMR people are going to do because there's no crinkling. So the packaging is even more minimal. You do get this. You get there's no power adapter. There's just the Lightning to USB-C cable.
Yeah.
And they do USB-C instead of USB-A because they figure everyone has USB-A, but they might not have USB-C. I know some people are grumpy about that, but that was the logic. And then you just have this giant sticker on the front that you can
protecting the glass. We had our very own unboxing here on the show. So that's the one you haven't played with, but I presume you've been messing with all the rest.
Yes. Well, I had to shoot video of it, so I did take it out and like shoot a bunch of video, and then I put it back because I still have to shoot an unboxing because it works backwards sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. Because all on the same YouTube video, you have to show the unboxing and beauty shots. Yeah. In slow-mo.
Although this year I ended up not showing the this is really inside baseball, but I shot and edited A-roll for a 45-minute deep dive video, same as last year, and then I had a very brief but very lovely chat with Walt Mossberg, and I channeled my inner Andy Ihnatko, and I'm like, you could do a little bit more human this year, Rene. If you put your nerdy glasses aside and think of the people, you could actually do something that is a better service to them. And then I scrapped it and I redid the whole thing.
That's what Walt Mossberg did, and look what happened to him. You know, I mean, consider who's bigger, Marquez Brownlee or Walt Mossberg?
The fact that Marquez I forced one of the busiest people I know into actually spending more time.
Perfect.
You're not working hard enough. I was probably putting new things through my new toaster oven just to see how good it would make cinnamon rolls. That's what it's all about.
You know, I know Andy has a new toaster oven because he posted a picture of the sticker from the toaster oven put on his screen and said his 5-year-old did it, which certainly got my attention. There is no 5-year-old.
He's got an inner 5-year-old.
Yeah. It's like, does your brain work this way? I'm not saying it should. I'm just saying that. I peel like it's the sticker, the display sticker that has like, here's everything on the panel that would be lit, the timer, baking modes. So it's a cling sticker. I peel it off, and then my brain says, oh, it'd be funny if we put this like on the screen of our laptop. So yeah, that would be funny. So what? So we're going to do that? So we don't have... No, let's do that. And it's like, I cannot move forward until I clear that flag for my operating system that says
Lord.
We have done this stupid thing that just occurred to us. And, oh well.
It was the 5-year-old within, however. Andrew does not have a 5-year-old.
To be fair, it did look really cool, and now I'm kind of wishing that were an actual feature. Like if there were like Wi-Fi integration, there should be just like an actual hovering thing. What you would be seeing. I want to see toast, bagel, waffle, dual cook, bake, all these things. I want to see them like in a dial format.
Come on, Apple. Why doesn't the MacBook Air toast bagels? Come on.
And you know what? It's on, as you can see, it was on my Chromebook, so it's quite appropriate that it has a cookie setting.
All right.
Sorry,
enough.
That's not Apple related, and we have news. So yes, you're right.
At least I tried to make it a MacBook. I'm going to say right up front that after I haven't seen the reviews yet because they just started coming out, but after having looked at the specs of the iPhone and getting over the reality distortion field of last Tuesday's event, I elected not to buy one. I just don't feel like I feel perfectly fine with my 12 Pro Max, and I don't feel any inclination to.
Can I say quickly that Brian Chen won the review competition today with the headline, "This is the most incremental upgrade ever."
I think that's fair.
Right. I hated that. I hated that review.
All right. Let's hear from somebody who actually has
Neil trashing it, and I think if you see Neil trashing another review for being too cynical, then you know something's really going on there.
It is very incremental. You can't deny that. I mean, we're at such peak iPhone, or actually smartphone at this point. It's not like you could do a revolutionary new camera technology.
Right.
No, I mean, there's a lot going on there. Like they are, yeah. They're not early adopter. They're not like racing parts of technology anymore. It's not like huge jumps every year. They've become, instead of like these amazing sci-fi things of our dreams, they've become utilities and tools. But the sort of upgrades that are going, and I'll say this about Samsung too, because people dunk on Samsung.
It's not exclusively Apple's problem.
Yeah. And I push back on that for everybody because I still think like we live in an age of wonders, and we sort of take what we have for granted now. But if you're just doing, most people don't upgrade every year; they upgrade every 3 to 4 years, so they get the sum total of all the upgrades. And it's like a bakery where you might not buy fresh bread every day, but when you go in there, they just have to have fresh bread for you. So Apple has to have a fresh phone every year because somebody's going to buy it. But more than that, the stuff they're focusing on is like, I even gave it to, like, Georgia's way more cynical than I am. And she helped me with my video very kindly, like every year. And she's just like, oh, it looks the same. And then she's like, oh my God, macro photography. And she just spent literally like an hour and a half. I had to beg her to stop doing like macro video photos and slow-mo. And for some other people, it's the 120 hertz refresh rate. And I saw Peter McKinnon's video about the cinematic mode where it does the rack focusing, and he looked like a 3-year-old just pressing the different buttons and watching the camera rack focus between him and the person shooting with him, where they did a pool game. So there are features that if you have very specific needs, requirements, or just delight buttons, that it'll absolutely hit for you.
Brian says the Apple iPhone 13 review, the most incremental upgrade ever. The new iPhone 10 is 10% faster than the last one, and the photos are slightly better. In a word, But I agree with you. You can't blame Apple. Apple's going to have to do it. Well, he points out that the 6S was 70% faster than its predecessor. So there have been years where they're big chunks, but it's hard to do that now. I would say I think the biggest, you tell me, but to me, the biggest selling point of this is battery life.
It is, yes. Yeah. The battery, I didn't quite get it because I'm testing it and I'm playing a lot of Pokemon Go, but like, I know Lisa's super interested in this part, but I'm still getting like 2/3 of what they said. And if I'm not playing Pokemon Go or doing testing, I think I'm going to get 2 to 3 hours more just because I don't do I don't game a lot besides that.
And that's on the Max?
Yeah, so the one
that needed it was the Mini. The one that really needed it was the Mini, because I have never felt like I didn't have enough battery life on the 12 Pro Max.
So like on mixed workloads, including 5G, you'll get about an hour and a half longer on the Mini and on the Pro, and about 2.5 hours on the regular 12 and the 12 Pro. The regular 13 and the 13 Pro Max, which is huge because the Max already went more than a day for me.
What's the sacrifice? It's a little bit heavier. Is it thicker?
It's a little bit heavier. A lot of people think they just made the battery bigger, which is really hard because batteries are heavy, they're insulating, and they mess with RF signals. So you can't just pour unlimited battery in there because you just make a bigger battery to waste. So a lot of it is the A15. I know some people were upset it's 10% faster, but it's 10% faster with enormously more efficiency, especially in all the video pipelines. And then they also did they use a lot of AI to try to figure out what you're going to do before you do it. So there's a lot of software optimization.
Actually, if you're going to
the modem is way more efficient.
If you're going to spin this, the spin is Apple now controls the silicon that they have forever on the iPhone, but they control the silicon so they can make those kinds of decisions. This year, we're going to improve the speed. I've never seen anybody complain about the speed of their iPhone, even a really, really old iPhone. We're going to improve the speed a little.
To get updates for.
But you know what people really like? More battery life. We can optimize for that, and I think that's a real virtue.
The processor. The overhead is important because like this year, the iPhone SE and the iPhone 6S are still getting updates. So you want a processor that's not just like, if it's barely scrolling okay this year, it's probably not going to be great in 3 years. But if it's doing all this heavy lifting now, like cinematic mode,
future-proofing.
It doesn't peg it, but it's really close. Yeah, it's a lot of future-proofing. But also we've seen with Intel that when you just goose frequencies, like regardless of the thermal envelope, you can have a device that basically shuts down. And Apple increased frequency while significantly increasing battery life, which is not normal in most devices.
Yeah. And I think that if you had I bought one.
Well, we knew you were going to buy one.
I want the camera.
But the camera, you know,
I'm
I was
actually
interested
glad,
in the camera
because I want you to review cinematic mode. To be honest with you,
I got to wait for a while now because it's I waited 45 minutes. Like literally, I forgot it was that day, and we were in after hours, you know, and someone was like, "Oh, I just went through this trouble. I ordered it." And they were all talking about their
5 a.m.
dates.
Pacific, and you had already done some. You were already in after hours.
I was in it. Well, yeah, because after hours runs 21 hours a day. So I go in at about 5. I'm not allowed to talk. My house isn't very well insulated for sound, and so. You can hear my voice all over the house if I talk. So I have an agreement not to talk until 5:30. So
that must be
so the guys
challenging. I might add.
So everyone was buying them together on after hours at 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Because there's people all over the world. So there's some people that wasn't early for the folks in the UK and so anyway. So people were talking about it, and they're all talking about the fact that the store still has this problem where. Right in the first 10 minutes, it's just constant. Like you get part way through, and you get part way through, and you get part way through. Anyway, so they were talking about that, and I was like, it's today? I thought it was a week from now. And then I quickly picked it up, and 45 minutes in, and I'm now like October 6th to 10th or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, in 45 minutes. It was amazing.
I ordered about 40 minutes in for Lisa, and I was able to get delivery this Friday.
Yeah,
but I did notice there were some Apple Pay issues. It didn't at first take my Apple Pay, and then it seems to.
Right, and it might have been the one I got too, because I got the Max with the terabyte and a thing and a thing.
I only got her 512 gigs because.
And the Apple Card Bank fell down, right? They had to apologize.
Yeah, I think that's what the problem was. Apple Card, because I said I bought it on Apple Pay, and it spun and spun and spun, and then it backed out. Then I did it again. It said you've already bought it, and it was it was not but that's okay. And there's a lot of people trying to use this thing.
And for me, I'm constantly trying to figure out, how far can we push the cameras, and how far what are we doing?
Yeah,
so
you need to do
it's usually an easy thing for me to look at. I'm interested in the cinematic mode. I don't think it's like they talk about like filmmakers are going to use
I think
this.
it's portrait mode, which is all done in software. You pointed that out last week.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of softness, but getting that data, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's very little. So there's portrait mode just in terms of how it does the effect afterwards.
It's not an optical rack focus.
No, it's not optical, but it's really interesting. What they're doing is as the frames come in, it's running the same sort of computational analysis you do for portrait mode. So it's making the depth map, it's making the segmentation filters, but it doesn't want the bokeh to change between frames. So it also looks at the nearest neighbor frame so that it's doing all of this on multiple frames of video as it's ingesting them. And they had to make just a whole new pipeline to be able to keep that speed up even at 1080p to be able to do all that, and a new storage controller to write that data fast enough for this and ProRes to get it all on disk without missing frames. Which I thought
I'm really interested in the fact that it's writing the depth map. Like, as a visual effects person, I'm super interested in that part. So I'm and Rene, do we know what flavor of ProRes it saves?
422, but I'm not sure if it's LT or not yet because I haven't seen the actual version.
Okay,
at least it's 422. That's good.
422, even LT would be great.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. It's ProRes means a lot of things. Very big. But
proxy. Proxy's mostly it's really proxy. Like, it's not something you can use. And so if it's 422, any flavor of 422 on a phone would be amazing.
What's LT? What does that mean?
It's light. It's about I think 30% lighter than 422, and so you have
more
proxy,
compressed.
which is like, I don't care about you. And then there is there's LT 422 HQ 444 444XQ.
Right.
In a perfect world, like what we hope to see in a future one would be 422 HQ, and the reason for that is it's a lot bigger, but it would carry the 10-bit data, that you need for HDR, which is now
3 gigabytes a minute is what it's going to be storing, which to me makes me cry for a lightning correct connector.
Wait, 3 gigabytes per minute?
Yeah, I think
right?
I think that's what it's going to be.
Okay, let me do some math.
Do some math, will you?
I'll tell you what it is.
That's why you can't do it on the low storage iPhone. They said that it just filled up too fast.
So the other point,
it was not usable on the
other point that's important is you can't do 4K 60 frames.
No, they can't process it fast enough.
Can't do it. That's too much. So you're doing 4K or 1080. What are you doing? 4K 30 or 1080? 4K 30.
1080 would be fine.
If
I'm saying ProRes, I'd be happy.
1080 30. Yeah. So
it's
ProRes 1080
it's not 24, but they've never done 30. They've never done 24 at 1080p. They think that's a television resolution. They've always done 30, but they're working, I'm guessing, towards 24 4K.
So
for cinema files.
I really think that the interesting point here is that Apple at this point now with their silicon, and I'd expect to see this to happen in the iPad and the Mac as well, is doing more than saying we want more speed, more general.
Yes.
We don't want to improve our Geekbench score. What we want to do is optimize this processor for the things we want to do. And in this case, ProRes 422, maybe rack focus, maybe they needed to do it for cinematic mode, and battery life. And I think that's very interesting because it means where Apple's going to go in future, and that makes perfect sense. It's not necessarily linear. Next year, it might be faster.
Silicon features.
Yeah, it's going to be feature focused.
It's not big core. It's post big core world. They're doing silicon features specifically for and they work 3 years out. So they make the silicon, like the encoders are specific are new this year. They've got specific ProRes encode decode blocks just for ProRes to be able to handle it on a phone, and they've got a whole new pipeline to move all that data again to the storage to the collector. I'm sad. I filmed my whole A-roll for that video. I didn't use all of it, but I filmed my whole A-roll in cinematic mode, and it was large and it was really hard to get off an iPhone.
Yeah.
So like I just gonna keep up the pressure for Thunderbolt. I can't even use USB anymore. I need Thunderbolt for ProRes.
Well, and for somebody like me who's not going to be, I was all excited about Dolby Vision in the 12, and I never ended up doing anything with it. So for somebody like me who's just taking family photos, video, just using it as a camera, it's probably not going to be a dramatic improvement over the 12.
In low light, it's good. Yeah.
Is it? Oh, so is it noticeable in low light? Noticeably
Yes,
more?
because it's so much bigger. Like it's drinking in so much more light. That
Yeah.
Sorry, Andy.
I was just going to say, this is where I think we've often talked about how Apple's definition of the word pro tends to be really, really malleable from one product line to another. But I really like how absolutely distinct they are in the iPhone line, where I think it's very, very clear that if you're shopping for an iPhone, try to convince yourself that I'm saying try to convince yourself that you need the iPhone Pro. You're probably going to be so happy with the iPhone 13, particularly if you take the extra money. I'm sorry, but based on the reviews that I've read, obviously I haven't put my hands on one yet, but I'm saying that if it's like the iPhone 12 and previous designations where they've done the iPhone Pro, for most people, if you've got a budget of $1,100, $1,200 to spend on a phone, there is a very, very good argument to be made that get the non-pro version, but use that extra money to get as much storage as you possibly can, or as double what you think that you're going to need. Whereas there are people for whom the pro features of the iPhone Pro are truly groundbreaking, and they are truly the difference between, I'm sure that my iPhone can take the pictures I need or take the video that I need, but I'm going to take my pocket nice camera instead, in addition, just in case. And saying that after testing the hell out of it during a 2-week, during the period in which you can return it, being able to say, this is actually muscular enough for the things I actually do that I will see a big, big difference, and it is definitely worth the extra money. So this is why I did highlight how much I liked Brian Chen's headline, and also a couple of the points that he made that I thought were very, very well addressed. Again, I have not put my hands on one, so I'm only commenting on his review, and how the musicality of that line and the headline I thought was very, very well. But as I said at the end of at the Apple event when we did the show right afterward, that there's absolutely nothing out of line. There's absolutely nothing embarrassing about taking an exceptional phone and just making it a little bit better, or looking at specific pain points that they think that they can finish a little bit better than they did with the iPhone 12. That is not something that anybody should complain about at all. That is the sign that they have been doing 12, 13 now iterations of just making things better and better and better. So that's not something that Apple should be dinged for. And also Renee's point is very well taken. People don't, if you're buying a new phone every year, what Brian said later on in the review, saying that it's a performative demonstration of really, really bad consumerism to have to think you have to buy a new $1,200 phone each and every year. But for people like me, who have not bought an iPhone in a few years, in my case, I switched from the iPhone a number of years ago. This is the sort of thing that gets me interested, and when I have the $1,000 taped to the bottom of my desk, intending to buy like a high-end phone sometime this year or next, this is the sort of thing that makes me think, gee, if Google looks like they're going to be revolutionizing the Pixel phone with a Pixel 6, maybe that just means that their huge revolution will only put them one step behind this very, very mature iPhone 13, which is never a line that has never stepped a foot wrong in the past 3 or 4 steps that they've taken.
Let me read Brian Chen's. I think I disagree with this paragraph, the one you referred to, Andy. This is all to say the annual phone upgrade, which companies like Apple and Samsung tout with enormous marketing events and ad campaigns to gin up sales for the holiday shopping season, has become a mirage of tech innovation. In reality, the upgrades are now a celebration of capitalism in the form of ruthless incrementalism. I think that's going a little bit far.
I agree with the second. I agree with the second half.
But I think Renee's point is excellent, which is that regardless, Apple's got to do a new phone every year for people who are 3 phones or 4 phones old, and
I think
or on an annual upgrade program. Some people lease, like companies lease.
I think imagine the howl if they didn't do a new phone every year. I think this is part of the deal.
And especially if you're subscribing, if you're regular payment, you just get a new phone, you're going to want to see a new phone.
Yeah.
And so, and then I do think that the primary market, when people ask me like, should I get one? I have an iPhone 12. I'm always like, well, there's got to be a feature there that really pulls you forward, or you just stick with what you have. And
Brian did a good job, I think, of illustrating the if you do shoot a lot in the dark, I think this is an important upgrade. So here is a nighttime photo shot with a 10S, which didn't have night mode of his Corgi. You can barely see it. It's just a murky blob. And then on the left, the iPhone 12. But really, the iPhone 13 is appreciably better even than the iPhone 12, and of course, a lot better than the 10S.
So, right. And so if you have a 10 or an 11, which there's hundreds of millions of people have, that it makes sense to not necessarily buying the very new one, the one to replace the one you just had, but coming really from you've been hanging on to it for a while. It's going to be a huge jump forward.
For 10% increase in performance, I don't have a problem with the performance of the 12,
Apple knows,
and a minor incremental increase in this night shot. Cinematic mode. It's the first time I've not bought an iPhone, so I guess I have to, in my mind, just to justify it. Lisa's bought one, so she said, "You have to play with mine before
they know. Apple knows. Like when you talk to them, they know that it's changed. Like it's 3 to 5 years now, and they know that they're appealing to iPhone 7 customers who have a good camera. iPhone 8 or iPhone 10 customers, those are the ones that they have to convince. And that's the sum total of 3 or 4 years of updates. So it's not insignificant when you look at those figures.
And if you're on an iPhone 10, it's like late years. Like so we look at it as 1 year, it's being incremental, but 3 years back, the camera has come so far in 3 years. And then, and again, for many of these things, to get someone to buy something, you don't have to, they say that, this is probably a bad joke, but they say that, if you're being chased by, if you're with your friend in the woods, if you're being chased by a bear, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just be faster than your friend. And so the thing is that in that sense, they don't have to create this incredible thing every single year that pulls way out, because it also takes an enormous amount of investment per piece, and you do have to have some kind of progression. We're going to do this. One of the hardest things for hardware and software companies is to make certain that they know what's going to happen next. And there's a lot of places where you're not putting everything you could think of into this version, and it's really frustrating. When we had a piece of software actually that we sold for plug-in for Final Cut, I knew what 3 versions out was going to look like. I knew what that looked like, and I knew that I couldn't release right now with that version. So we had to release this version, and by the time you release it, you feel like it's old news because you've been working on it for the last couple months, and you were excited about the next one, and it's really hard not to talk about the one that's in front of that. But but from a business perspective, you have to release them at a regular rate, and if we keep on adding every idea into every new version, you don't get it. You can't. It's an unsustainable inflation of expectations.
So the 10S the 10S was a 2018 model. So this is 3 years later. A dramatically improved night shot, dramatically improved battery life, a bigger screen, probably a better screen. I think that if your iPhone is 3 years old, it might be time to look at it. It's a little harder if it's only 2 years old. I don't feel any inclination with a 1-year-old iPhone, but that's completely reasonable. People keep their phones for 2 at least. I would hope.
And I have a tendency to keep them all the time.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the first time I've not done this, but I don't actually feel any.
But your point was
FOMO.
really good too, Leo. Because there are going to be hard physical limits that everyone is going to hit. Because yes, TSMC is going to go down to 3 nanometers. They're going to call something 1 nanometer. They're going to hit quantum reality really quickly there. There's also a limit to the physical size of a phone, like the thermal envelope. There are limits to how fast you can spike or you can do frequency because you'll brown out the batteries. Like there's all these hard physical realities, and I think, like you said, the age of big cores are over. You're never going to be able to make those as fast as you could on a Mac Pro or something. So starting to architect your silicon for the specific features you want to deliver makes a lot of sense to me. And because they do it in-house, they can target those features 3 years out and say, we want to be able to do live text, we want to be able to do cinematic mode, and we want to be able to do the ProRes stuff, and then just build for that. And that, at least to me, keeps silicon interesting again. It keeps these phones interesting.
Yeah, I'm actually, I think that, it's funny, Brian X. Chen in his review in the New York Times didn't even mention improved battery life. He just even mentioned it.
It is so much better.
Which is a huge thing. And it's something I know people have been bugged about for a long time that their battery life isn't better.
It's the number one feature consumers care about on every survey you look at. Not us, mainstream
And
consumers.
I really think the most important point, as you said, Rene, the most important point is Apple can now optimize for what it thinks people want. Notice, by the way, with the departure of Johnny Ive, nothing about thin anymore.
Yay.
Yay.
Make the camera bumpier if it makes it better for better cameras.
Or more lenses. Like you could have more lenses.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying. Like 6, 8.
I
totally
want a
fine.
periscope so badly.
Well, I want lenses.
I have to point out the company. Remember Light?
Pixel Bind.
The Light camera that had
Lightroom.
16 lenses
So-
on it. Not Lightroom.
so the thing-
Light. It had.
Light,
it looked like.
right.
Remember that?
Yep.
It looked like a bug. It had all those lenses. Did not sell.
Nokia had
I
one
just
of
want
those
to point
too.
out though. Yeah, but they weren't Apple. But the thing is that
it didn't take better pictures. That's all that matters.
all I want to point out is that interocular distance can be on the back of the phone so that you could shoot 3D videos. You can shoot 3D videos.
Someday.
That's all I'm saying. 3D
Spread-
videos.
What
Spread
about
those
those of us
lenses
with
out.
really big heads, Alex? What happens for us?
Spread
Or are we going to be
those lenses
forgotten
out.
like
It's
you?
going to
Still big.
politics.
It's still big enough. It's still big enough.
Marquez-
You average interocular distance. It turns out it only varies by about 5 millimeters.
Marquez Brownlee in his video review did point out a bug, I think, in macro mode, and maybe Rene, you can confirm this. He said he can't manually switch out of it. He could switch into it, but he can't switch out of it. A new setting will be added in software update this fall, says Apple, to turn off automatic camera switching when.
Some people complained about to me the beauty of macro mode is that it wasn't a mode. If as you got close, it would just switch to the camera that does macro. But some people didn't like that because they wanted to get less close and still shoot with a different camera, which I totally get. And you always have this battle between some people like night mode being automatic, some people want a separate mode the way Google does it on a Pixel. You can't please everybody. This will be a setting so you can choose. I just love the fact that I could push in on something, not have to worry about a button or a setting, and then suddenly it's a macro and I'm shooting it.
I have to say, Apple seems like they're always going to err on the side of automatic rather than lots of
we also have
simplicity. Maybe a better way to put it. Yeah.
And we also have to remember that these features are potentially available to developers, and so you have companies like Filmic Pro, you have companies like Halide that are going to they're going to get access to the tools that Apple put in there, so that they can take advantage of it and give people who want that manual control of the phone. I actually find that there are too many modes within the current Apple phone. I got into a photo mode the other day. I couldn't get to video. It's I don't understand, and so there's so many things you hit the wrong button on. I think that the phone on the Apple phone, or the Apple camera, has gotten too complex, in my opinion. That you should leave that. If I open something up and I want to take a video, I don't want 1,000 different versions of that. I just want to be able to take the video. If I want something more complex, I want to open up. So when I open up Filmic, I'm ready.
You're voting for Apple's way of doing it. Make it simple.
Oh, yeah.
At least in the basic camera app, and then if you want more, you got Filmic or Halide or something else, and you can get all those.
Exactly.
features.
Let them. But the phone that's built in that you open up
exactly
should just work.
I think that's exactly right.
I'll agree, and I'll say that I think that's true across many different phone camera platforms. The number of times when I'm testing a phone, whether it's the iPhone, whether it's a Samsung phone, where it's oh wow, that's cool, I really want to take a picture of that. Say, oh okay, I seem to be in panorama mode for some reason because my thumb kind of smudged a little bit while I was pressing the shutter button. Okay, well that was fun. I'll try to describe to people what that little bird looked like. Yeah, that'll be almost just as good.
The one thing that really irks me though is that there's no you can press a button to change between 4K and 1080p. You can tap a little icon to change between 30, 60, and 24 frames per second. There is no indication if you're in HDR mode or not. There is no toggle for it in the camera. You have to spelunk deep into the settings to change it. And also when you airdrop, even though it saves an HDR tone map and an SDR tone map, you can't choose between them. If you want to get that off, you have to either airdrop it to a device that can't accept HDR like an old iPad, or open it up in iMovie and export it from there like an animal. And that sort of thing it's a completely different workflow. So depending on what you're doing, filming in the wrong mode, it's going to be really annoying to you. So I find I'd like a little bit more complexity. But the thing that really impressed me about all this stuff is that Apple's continued desire to do almost everything they can in real time and with instant shutter. And you think that's trivial until you shoot on phones that don't have it. Yes. And things get applied as After Effects. Or I was doing side-by-side shooting with a Pixel and with an iPhone to try out night mode, and George's brother came and put his arm around her, and in the iPhone photo he's not there. In the Pixel photo he's got his arm around her, and it's just a difference in when they actually take the photo. And I'm just so used to using a camera that the real-time stuff is it's part of my workflow, and I like the fact that it feels like a camera to me.
That's another thing that we forgot about is shutter lag. which used to be a huge problem.
Oh yeah.
And Apple's just solved it, and probably that.
And the
comes
new
with
thing is
a better
nutty.
processor.
Like the telephoto is 77 millimeters now, which I'm not sure I like because I love 50 millimeters. The old one was 52. Last year was 65 on the Max. Now it's 77 on both. But it went from f2.0 to f2.8. But the image signal processor is so good, it's hard to find any additional noise in it.
Yeah, just on paper, I like 77. That's a portrait length. I wish that the wide was more toward 50, because I agree with you. You should have a normal lens. So you really have two. It's 35 millimeter equivalent wide angle lenses and one kind of medium telephoto. It'd be nice to have a normal.
Yeah, you've got 13, 24,
sure.
and 77 on this one.
13's very wide, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm sure that their metric was widescreen. Wide mode is defined as your friends in a restaurant booth at a restaurant table mode. Telephoto mode is really, really good portrait with adequate light mode.
Right.
So this is this is why I love Apple's. I think that Google and Apple both have separate but wonderful philosophies on how they approach photography, and Apple's really is, I don't care what the number of this what the focal length of this lens is going to be, is that give me a solution for taking pictures where you hand the photo to a waiter, and you have to make sure that waiter is going to push the button that looks like a shutter button, and they're going to wind up with a good picture without being told to tap someplace else, and also that will the lens and be both wide enough and light sensitive enough to get the entire really happy shot of your bowling league after coming in just third in the quarterly championships.
I have to also point out that there's an ulterior motive to not buying the new iPhone. As I mentioned, I bought the iPad Mini, and I'm thinking that might be my new phone.
Yeah.
It's a foldable. It doesn't fold.
If it would only fold, I think I'd be in happy land.
It folds. It doesn't unfold again. Sorry.
For whatever reason. Go ahead.
I was saying, for whatever reason, the cell phone coverage around my house isn't very good, and so it's constantly breaking up.
You're always on Wi-Fi. Yeah.
I've just gotten used to now just calling on FaceTime audio.
Yeah.
You just hold down on something. You go to their info. You hold down and go FaceTime.
Yep.
And I've gotten so used to that now, and I'm so used to the quality of it that it's so much higher quality that now, even when I'm traveling, I'm on on LTE or whatever, I'm just constantly just using my FaceTime audio.
So this is the experiment. You can call landlines with it, right?
No.
So if I have to, I don't know why
I
would call anybody with a landline, but if I had to,
I
guess I'd use Google Voice. There are other things like that.
There's other things you can use. I mean, you can use other
Skype works. I actually have a phone number on my Skype, so
I just don't know if I have any. I don't know anybody. I guess if I called the government or something.
Yeah, if you call the government. When you call, you could just shout,
"Fuddy duddies."
Hey, government! Oh, that's right. You don't have any Echo or Google devices, so
I do. I have Siri. So
yeah. See, I don't think the government's listening on Siri. So it'll be it's an experiment. I'm not thinking I'll carry an 8-inch phone around, but it might. Well,
again, I think I talked about this a week or two ago, but I found that the radios in the iPad Pro are much better than the phone. Yeah. And so I've gotten into the habit of, with that one, I call out and then I jump on Zoom or whatever, and I just set it in the middle of the house and just wander all over with my AirPod Pros, and they work. My phone doesn't work that way. It'll break up on the edges.
Speaking of which, the 12 had Wi-Fi 6. Does this have 6E in it, Renee, or is it just still 6?
It does not, which I'm sad about because I've been waiting. I've been waiting for 6E.
Oh,
like the Enterprise E is the best of the bunch.
Yeah.
I did the math.
Yeah.
It's Apple ProRes LT.
It is LT, based on 3 gigabytes,
which is great.
per second.
I'm still 1 gigabyte. It's 1 gigabyte per minute. Is LT? If they had gone up, it would have been.
Well, he said it's 3 gig. Oh, 3 gigs an hour.
No. What did you say, Rene?
3 gigs.
3 gigs.
I believe
you said 3 gigs.
It's not final yet.
So it isn't LT. If it's 3 gigs a minute, that's not LT.
That's not LT. Hold on.
It's 3 times
now I got to
better.
do math again. I misunderstood. Hold on.
And now we dub in the montage from Goodwill Hunting of chalkboard math floating in and out over Alex's head.
Yeah, I know. I need like the little accountant.
Hey, while you're doing the math, let me take a break, and we'll come back because I want some people to do some math. See what I got? Look at this. Remember Lisa said she had a black card? I just stole her black card. But notice there's a little funny little logo on that black card. How would you like to have a Visa signature card that earns you Bitcoin on every qualifying purchase you make? That's this. It's a BlockFi card. Whether you're a crypto pro or a total beginner, You can finally earn Bitcoin the easy way, unlimited Bitcoin on every qualifying purchase. It's a real credit card. It's a Visa signature, which is actually a very good credit card. So buy groceries, get Bitcoin. Pay your bills, get Bitcoin. Fill up at the gas station, get Bitcoin. Every time I go to dinner, I got Bitcoin, baby. You earn 1.5% back on Bitcoin on all qualifying purchases. There are no reward limits. There's no annual fee. There's no foreign transaction fees. It's a really good credit card. No, let me say that again. No annual fee, no foreign transaction fees, and you get Bitcoin 1.5% back on every single qualifying purchase. If you've been wondering, hey, I'd like to get in this crypto thing, now's the time to start or ramp up your Bitcoin portfolio. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Bitcoin's been going up quite a bit. And the other thing, you can convert this later to other forms of crypto as well. Turns out Bitcoin was the best performing asset of the last decade, outperforming the NASDAQ 100 by 10 times, according to Yahoo Finance. Wow. BlockFi, you probably know the name. They're a leader in crypto. They were named to Forbes FinTech 50 list in 2021. They are already a great way to buy, sell, and earn crypto of all stripes. There's no better time to sign up and start earning Bitcoin today. I just love it. Look at that. That's my black card. It's a Visa signature card that earns me Bitcoin with every qualifying purchase. Right now, you're going to get a nice bonus, $25 in crypto after you make your first purchase with the credit card. When you sign up, please go to blockfi.com/MacBreak. I want you to do that so they know you saw it here. A $25 bonus in crypto deposited right in your account after you make your first purchase. You've got to use this URL, though, BlockFi, blockfi.com/MacBreak, and start earning Bitcoin back on all your qualifying purchases today. BlockFi.com/MacBreak. Now, here's the part on the radio where they speed it up so fast you can't hear it, but I'm going to actually read it. Terms and conditions, not all will be eligible. Geographic, regulatory, and underwriting restrictions apply. Fees and terms are subject to change. Additional terms of service are available at BlockFi.com. BlockFi is a financial technology company. Banking services provided by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. See? You didn't have to read that real fast. I love it. And I love when Lisa uses this, it's so cool. People go, wait, is this a Bitcoin card? Yeah. Yeah, I'm earning Bitcoin, baby. Thank you, BlockFi, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Did you get the new iPad, Rene, or no, just the phones?
I have no knowledge of iPads.
Oh, embargo not lifted.
I'm talking to Andy's puppy at the moment, just enjoying it.
It's funny because I was shocked because when we were doing the event, Micah said, "Oh, you can buy it now." I said, "Now? I thought you pre-order now." No, you can buy it now. So I'm going to get it on Friday. I think it's an interesting experiment. We shall see. We shall see.
It looks so cute.
Yes, he's done the math.
So
update the
I just want to confirm with Rene. We're talking 1080, 30 frames a second, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so if it's 3 gigabytes per minute at 1080p 30,
yes,
and we're looking for 1 minute,
yes,
it's Apple ProRes 4444. Like
no,
they said 422, so it can't be 444.
Okay.
They did say for sure it's 422.
Well, it sounds like it's better than light.
So maybe it's 4K, but I'll double check.
It could be 4K, or it could be ProRes, and
it's
so
not
available.
It's not
ProRes HQ.
It's
so
not
the reason
available
that
now, is it? Rene, didn't they say it's coming?
No.
It's coming,
yeah, which is why it's a little confusing.
We don't know yet because we haven't.
Right.
We can't try it.
So
yeah,
it's if it was HQ, it would be super. HQ would make more sense in a lot of ways. 422 HQ than 422 because it was 10-bit, and Apple's already doing HDR, which now you have a phone that does 10-bit HDR would be amazing.
You might want to get the 2
it would,
terabyte version, is what you're saying.
No, it would. It's one of those things. Like if you're shooting that way, you know that I might have to
offload regularly.
Offload the phone. yeah, exactly. So that would be fine. But that would be fine. I mean, I shot a 30. You'd be able to shoot up to 30 minutes.
By the way,
and then
this is probably the conversation Catherine Bigelow was having about 2 years ago or a year ago, whenever she started shooting with the iPhone 13. You telling me what?
So I don't know. I mean, I would be very surprised.
ProRes
if we got
4K 30 It does 4K.
It is
30.
4K 30.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now it's going to be.
Yeah, it's only 1080p 30 on the
Okay.
128 gigabyte.
Should I do
iPhone
another ad so
because
you
it
can
would
do
fill
the
up too
math
fast.
again?
No, I can do the math. It's
Oh, there
all
is
sitting
one
in
other
front
thing.
of
Can I
me right
mention one
now.
other?
You just divide it by 4, right? Because it's 4 times the bits.
Oh, now if it's 4K. Oh, I had 4K 60. Hold on. Oh, that's too much.
4K 30. Yeah.
4K 30. I think that it's.
Is there-
I now
Live
think it's
math
LT.
is hard.
Yeah.
I think it's LT.
It's LT. Okay.
Is
4K
there- is there
30, 3 gigabits per minute would be ProRes 422
Yeah,
It's a
LT.
little, it shows up as a little less than that, but it's like 52 seconds or whatever at 3 gigs. But
There's
that
some
could be
overhead.
some wow
Yeah,
and flutter there.
yeah.
I'm curious if they're absolutely maxing the pipeline with that, or if there's some overhead left for a future upgrade. If they're being a little bit conservative with the data rates right now, to make sure that when they're promising people that you can who are probably going to be charging money for a lot of the video they shoot in this mode, that no, this will not screw up. But then after it's been battle tested and hardened, they will say, okay, guess what? We've added another.
The other possibility is some new version of ProRes that is like an HLG, ProRes with some metadata for vision, or like there's a whole bunch of things that they could do there that are out of the box. Thinking about that. So it could be its own new version. So we don't know until we.
And they
play
are
with it, but
storing
it's exciting.
SDR and HDR tone maps for everything that you shoot, so you can get both off the same video. Which
I should have
ProRes?
just pulled up this chart that Anthony Nielsen sent us. I wasn't paying attention. Here's all of the different bit rates of the different things.
Well, what I'm using.
You'd be
is
talking about
AJA.
4096 by 2160. That's 4K. Now this is 25 frames. 162 megabits, 365 megabits, 524 megabits. Now I have to go 3 gigabytes per minute. How many megabits per second is that?
It's way easier if you just use the AJA video, the AJA calculator.
Oh, okay.
AJA makes what I'm doing is I have a calculator and I just type in, this is my target bit rate. How much time do I have? So it's little.
LT is about 50% of.
it's good for a phone.
It's good for a phone.
Well, and to be clear,
And the format the most important thing, really, so that you can just import it right into Final Cut or?
Well, it's less compressed. It'll be a lot less compressed than HEVC. So one of the things that if you just set to 4K 60 or so, and just point out at some flowing trees, and then zoom in on that, and what you're seeing is little fractal patterns. It's not leaves anymore. So LT will hold that leaf data and fine details so much better than HEVC or H.264, and so LT will be much better from just a clarity perspective, and then it's also way easier to edit. You don't have to. You can just bring it in, and it's a better format to edit. But what it really is going to do is hang on to a lot more of the detail that you're throwing away right now when you shoot with HEVC.
Can I ask one question that has been on my mind for a long time, as the new iPhones for the past couple of years have been adding these super high-end pro features, and as during the keynotes they've been saying, and we had this Oscar-winning director direct this short film to show you how good it is. Are we talking about something that ordinary people are going to appreciate, or is this like the difference between, well, yes, you could buy the $35 frying pan that the Wirecutter recommends, or you could buy the $480 one that's made out of Beskar steel? Are these things that are going to be appreciated by most people, or is it a really tiny segment of pro users that are going to say, maybe this is a reason why I can use this as a B camera, or why I can set this phone up on a tripod in the choir loft of a wedding and use that to shoot part of the wedding with?
I think that I just want to say for the record that the Beskar steel pan 9-inch is a lot more expensive than $480, and it's great. It's really,
but it's real. The heating on that grilled cheese.
It's amazing. It's well. The big thing about it's even. Beskar gives you a much more even flow of heat across the entire base of it, because it's anyway. So it's another story. So anyway, so the
Boy, I dozed off for a minute, and I think I lost track of what are we talking? Grilled cheese?
Yeah, grilled cheese and Beskar.
Okay,
it's a Mandalorian cheese.
There's the problem. I miss all Mandalorian references. I don't get.
So anyway, so here's the thing: is what's happening is there's this. You're starting to see stuff that sure you're not gonna. It's weird thing right now is that customers are not all going to see the difference pros are probably not many of them will actually want to use it. But what's happening is you're starting to see better and better image quality that's coming out of the camera. And what happens is you look at other stuff and you're like, like, so if you take the videos for me, when I take videos with the 12 that are shot in HDR and I put them up on a TV, and then you go back to the SDR stuff that I've had in the past, it's a real bummer. Like you just go, oh, I really wish I had this for these movies before, because it's so much, there's so much more vibrance. There's so much more detail in the highlights and the dark areas. And so you get into this thing where you get used to watching it. And this is where Apple really has this ability to keep moving things forward, because as they move towards high dynamic range and spatial and 120 frames per second, there's going to be a point where they're going to be able to shoot 120 frames a second and you play it back. So your home movies are going to have this very real feel to them that maybe that's not good for film. And maybe we do 23:9:8, but home movies at 120 frames per second will make it feel like you're there, and it will be something that people like. And what it will do is have people start getting, frustrated with other frame rates, and frustrated with things that aren't as vibrant as what they're used to. And so the thing is that that HDR, the higher quality, and the reality is there's a lot of people making stuff for YouTube and all kinds of other things that this kind of stuff makes it easier for them to make something look great. When I do my training videos now, I do them all on my iPhone. Like little training videos for internally or for clients or whatever. It's just way easier for me to do them on my iPhone than it is to pull out even a Blackmagic 6K. Is going to be like a thing, and I got to hold it, and I got to figure things out.
And consider normal people.
No, but
like Lisa wanted to do some sales training videos, explain our sales system to new salespeople, and the
totally
easiest thing was the iPhone.
I totally would use an iPhone.
It was great.
And the fact that you get to that level where you can, and now with the cinematic mode, you can really make it look nice.
Yeah.
And we have to look at the practicality of corporate communication, of nonprofits, of school communications.
People doing this
all those
all
things
the time.
Can look really, really, really
There's
nice.
3 words that we haven't gotten to yet, and that's just rack focus TikTok.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I am dreading rack focus TikTok. I'll be frank. I'll be honest.
It's going to be trending.
Have you played with it, Rene, at all? I mean, do you know how quick it is, how good it is, how accurate the AI is?
I have a couple segments in my video, and it's both incredibly, it's really good, but also disappointing at the same time. The best analogy I can give you is the first year of portrait mode, where, I've never seen a phone do this before, but my glasses and the edges of my ears. And that's very much what it's like here. It's like I did it with Georgia and four family members, and it did a pretty good job, but sometimes it missed. It's not terrible because you can manually tap it whenever you want. And then And then it's great, like tap the focus of the person, and you really can't believe a phone camera is doing that. You're used to doing that with like a Cine camera or just like a good lens on it. So for me, it's like early days, but it's a really important step that we need to get to. Like almost every phone does great portrait mode photography now, but there were a couple of years there that we had to get through first, and this reminds me of that. The ability to do, and especially the ability to do it in post, that it saves all this data, and then you can go in and change it. You can change the depth, you can change the focal point, all in post-production as well.
It's pretty smooth, I have to say. I'm just looking at your video.
It's really smooth.
And they're doing a kind of a dissolve between the different focal lengths, which makes it so it's kind of nice. It kind of
very 90s music video here.
Yeah. It's a nice effect. And by the way, Georgia has a lovely family.
Yes.
How about the scenes? I saw you playing with that a little bit too. Do you like the scenes stuff?
Yeah. So yes and no. I think it's really good that Apple managed to do like the styles with they don't mess up faces, they don't mess up skies. So like if you apply cool or warm or high contrast, it doesn't look like a person's a pumpkin or an ice cube or anything. Like it adds a mood, but it doesn't distort it. But Apple decided to treat them as film stock. It's their homage to the old Fuji film stocks. And so it's like you're shooting on film. They're baked in. You can't go afterwards and change them or undo them like you would with the filters, which don't account for faces or skies or anything like that. So it was a real mixed bag. Like on one hand, I appreciate the hipster energy of it, but on the other hand, it's digital. I want a safety net.
Yeah. Anything else before we move on? Anything else to say since you're the one who's got them? Any surprises? Anything that didn't work? Anything that was exceptional?
No, everything worked. A lot of stuff is just a matter of opinion. Again, like the macro thing, I liked that it was automatic. Obviously a couple people didn't like that it was automatic, and they're going to make the thing for it. But
so all he has to do
is
is he goes close up to shoot something. To turn it off, you go up and look at something in
backwards
distance,
again,
and it will go back. So come on.
But they want to shoot close without that lens. I get like some people just don't. So the thing for me is like,
get a camera.
Apple isn't making 3 cameras. They're making a camera system that intelligently shifts cameras depending on what you want to shoot.
Yeah.
It's like it'll move away from the telephoto to the wide angle and crop if it needs more light. And like you can force it with halide to use a telephoto in low light if you want, but Apple just wants to give you a good picture. That's all they want. It's like a happy puppy. They want to give you your happy photograph, and they don't want you to care about the implementation details. But,
this is what we were talking about,
really
which is
control,
it does what it thinks most people are going to want without having them to do anything special about it.
Without making it another job. I mean, to manage
everything that Apple does, you always have to go through the filter of what will 90% of people want to do 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's going to be what they're going to aim for.
And unfortunately, the complainers are in the small 1%. So you'll hear a lot about things like
they're very
that.
vocal.
Yeah, well, or they have the 1% of needs. It's just that they have unusual needs, and they're the ones who are going to speak up. The people who say, "Oh yeah, that just works," aren't going to be saying, "Hey, this is great. It just works. Everybody, pay attention." They're just not. They're not the vocal minority.
And a lot of times, I think that we talk about this a lot internally when we're working on shows. Is that it's not what people notice or complain about; it's how they feel. And that's a really complicated thing to think about. Yeah. Is that, and it's actually more almost insidious than what you notice. It's the stuff that you feel like this is a better thing because of it, and you don't know why. But all those little things that work just a little bit better, that are just a little bit smoother. It took us a little while, for instance, to figure out why Keynote just looks better than PowerPoint. It's kerning and anti-aliasing.
Yes, little subtle things.
It's a super weird little thing that they do that just looks better. And you can't figure it out. You just know that, that looks nicer.
If our premise is correct that Apple is now using their magical powers with silicon to do custom A15s for the iPhone, what does this mean about the M1X, which will be, I'm just making up a name, the A15 in the Mac world? They're not going to obviously optimize for cinematic mode. They're going to optimize for other things. Well, is this where we see the fork in the road between the iPhone chips and the Mac chips?
I think the thing that makes Apple really good at silicon, like the biggest problem in silicon is having multiple clients. Like Qualcomm will tell you that if they have to support DirectX for Windows, OpenGL for Linux, and they have a bunch of different requirements, that's hard.
Yeah.
And that was a danger that Apple could have fallen into when the watch becomes a client, the iPhone becomes a client, the iPad. So they created what they call a scalable systems architecture, where it's the same basic core design and IP, but not like the M1 in the iPad is the same as the one in the Mac. It just doesn't need the x86 reordering blocks that it uses. It just ignores those. And the iPad.
So how do they do that?
A14.
They don't screen a whole new chip.
No, it's not feasible. They get money off. Like their whole thing is they buy so much of the same thing that they get incredible.
They turn off
scale.
How do they do that? Is the question.
They just don't hit. There's just no software that requests that.
The software doesn't.
It's the same thing
request
like the.
Okay. So
like
they do
the
it in software.
Has the same.
So do you think that the A15 or the M1X will be identical again, or will they start making separate screens for the two?
It'll be that there's three things that they can change, and you can see this with the A14 in the Air and in the iPhone. Is that like there's not as much photography on the iPad, so it doesn't hit everything in the image signal processor. Like it doesn't care about a lot of those things, so it just ignores it. But people tend to use bigger, more powerful apps, so it hits the GPU and some of the encode decode blocks a lot harder. And I think it's going to be the same thing with this. They're just going to keep building that silicon, and then the frequencies might be different given the thermal envelopes. Like they'll be able to increase frequencies a little bit on the bigger chassis devices, and they'll be able to ignore, or like the iPad mini uses Smart HDR3, not Smart HDR4, and I think it's because the iPad mini just can't take the level of photographs that the iPhone can. So they can just pick the features that they want for every device rather than making bespoke chips for every device.
They didn't put the sensor in, so they don't have to do that.
Yeah,
that's just a little disappointing, but I guess I understand why they don't want it, especially given the chip shortage. They don't want to go to TSMC and say, I want 4 different SKUs. They want to make it simple.
Well, and it makes it easier.
It destroys their economies. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just makes everything easier to develop for. It makes it easier for them to build them.
Yeah,
it makes, as they keep on doing this, they just become more.
That's why you don't
and
need
more and more
Catalyst
efficient.
anymore, right? Because it is.
And it's crazy. We have this app that we use called Mix Effect Pro to run our switchers to do graphics and stuff like that. And we realized, so someone brought it up. They're like, "Why are you using the iPad?" It's an iPad app, and they're like, "Why are you using the iPad when you could just use it on a Mac Mini?" And I was like, "Oh, right." Like I can just move this app now over to the Mac Mini.
That's pretty
and run
cool,
it,
isn't it?
And have it just in rack mounted in
Isn't
there
that
and
cool?
not have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Yeah.
Speculation about the next Apple event, October, Macintosh,
Or November.
or November.
Go either way.
Maybe not so soon.
Depends on when they're ready.
Yeah. Okay. We don't know. Well, let's talk about iOS 15 because that also came out. This is somebody's pointing out that Mac Stories has a 25-page review of iOS 15.
Yeah.
There's a lot
It's
to
wonderful.
say. We'll see if we get it in 5 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. Anything?
To me, the star of the show is the productivity enhancements in iPad OS. I've been playing. I've been I had an old iPad that had a beta on it that I barely used, but for the past 24 hours, I've been trying to use my new iPad as much as possible in replacement for my desktop Mac. And my goodness, multitasking has gone from. We figured out a way to shoehorn multitasking features into an operating system that was obviously never intended to do more than one thing at a time. And it's now not the best, not the very, very best multitasking system in the world, but it is light years ahead of where it was, and it kind of gets me more interested in using the iPad as a productivity machine from now on. They just addressed so many pain points from the get-go. The minimum being that. My God, just the idea of deciding that, that's right, in the middle of this document, now I really want to have a Twitter window, or I really want to have an outline window right next door to it, and saying, well, I guess I forgot to put Omni Outliner in the system dock, so it's going to be almost impossible to do. Oh, well, I better forget about that then. To really, no matter, you don't have to plan ahead what you want your workspace to look like. You can dynamically decide how you want to use your workspace, what apps you want side by side, when you want to slide something in, when you want to slide something out. It really is. One of the reasons why I spent so much money on the iPad Pro was because of what I was hearing about this new version of iPad OS, that there was going to be a huge investment in multitasking, and I feel as though that investment paid off. I'm really happy with it.
I like the new focus feature. They did a very extensive conversation about it earlier today on iOS Today. Micah Sargent and Rosemary Orchard, and I think you should watch because it's shortcut enabled, automated enabled. It looks like it's going to have some real capabilities. I'm using it now, so the phone won't ring when I go to work.
Which focus are you in?
I am in work focus.
Nice.
Well, it's funny because last night Lisa and I both upgraded to 15. She says, "Where's Do Not Disturb?" I said, "Go to focus." And now it's more stuff, but I think it's more fine tuned. I think it's going to be pretty good.
Lisa make a workout focus immediately with all her workout apps and none of the communications apps.
I don't know yet, but she will. I have a feeling. Exactly. Yeah. It's really that I think is going to be a nice feature. In a way, it solves the complexity of the iPhone by simplifying.
Custom home
it.
screens are nice. Like you can set different apps and different home screens
Yeah.
for different focuses, which is
What else do we like in iOS?
live
15?
text is. I know Andy and I have been gushing over this for a while, but I was looking. I wrote it myself on a whiteboard, held up the camera. I didn't even have to take a photo. I just selected the text that I wanted. I pasted it into where I wanted it. It's been transformed. Like I said, I can't even tell when I'm in photos anymore because I just select text or I go to hit a link and it takes me there, and then I forget. I wasn't in Safari. It's really brain bending.
Yeah. iPad OS, I've been playing with the beta of it, so I didn't see a lot of features, but a little point to note, if you were in the beta of either, you'll want to remove the beta profile, if you want to stick with the release version. In fact, with iPad OS, I actually had to download a new release version of iOS 15, even though I'd kept the betas up to date. So it's probably worth
There's
it.
new betas too, so if you don't, you'll be getting
do it
0.1.
now. Otherwise, you're on the new beta track. Somebody in the chat room saying Quick Notes is great. I agree. I've been using that on the iPad. How do you invoke it on the iPhone? Does it have Quick Notes on the iPhone?
No, they just go into notes.
Oh, nuts.
But the Mac
it's not
will
a big
have
enough screen to do it. But the Mac will have it, which is going to be great. Yeah.
I would like some limited multi-windowing. Like I like picture-in-picture, and some people are like, why would you ever want picture-in-picture? Because I take notes when I watch videos. Like videos is a job for me. I watch a video, I take notes on retention, on camera techniques, and I couldn't used to do that on an iPhone. Now I can put the picture-in-picture there and use it. But I would love to be able to do like have a notes window open on top of other windows sometimes, or two notes windows so I can read something and write something. Give it to me now.
Yeah. Did they ever get the mask unlock with the watch working?
It works great for me. I use it every day.
Oh, okay. Because it's very annoying. There's a new
Doesn't work
watch
for me.
OS too. It doesn't work for me either.
But the lack of Touch ID still bothers me on the iPhone. We've had two of the worst years ever, and it would have been so considerate to put it back.
It's so annoying. I'm in the doctor's office yesterday. It's masked in the lobby, and I have to lift the mask, do this, and put it down. I'm hoping nobody notices so that I could do Face ID.
So the roadblock for most people is you have to, like the first time you try to unlock with your watch, you have to put in the passcode. So the first time you put your mask on, it'll fail and ask for your passcode. You put that in, and then it will just open with your watch again after that.
Okay, so I'll have to try that. It didn't work initially, right? And then it did work. There's another reason why my new phone is my iPad Mini, because it has Touch ID. I love it. What else? What other new features in iOS 15? No, it seems like no showstoppers.
Some didn't ship.
Sorry,
they postponed a bunch. They postponed a bunch of features instead of shipping with any.
Oh, let's talk about that. Yeah,
SharePlay was postponed.
SharePlay, we knew that. What else was postponed?
Yeah.
I have a
I don't know
list.
if it's been postponed or not yet, but we don't have some of them at this point.
I have a list from 9 to 5 Mac of
too.
delayed, not postponed. Yeah. Pardon me.
Yes.
SharePlay delayed. ID cards, support for the ID cards in the Wallet app. Not yet in iOS 15. Doesn't matter. I don't live in Georgia. I don't live in one of the two states. But if you did, you would probably be disappointed. Stop
doing like these monolithic updates and just say this is the roadmap for the next year. You're going to have a bunch of new features in the fall, a bunch more in the spring, a bunch more in the summer. Look forward to them, and we'll get them out to you in perfect working order.
The app privacy report still to come. Let's see. Custom email domains. Not yet.
CSAM, luckily.
Yeah, CSAM was delayed or postponed or put off forever, maybe.
Yeah, or reevaluated.
The 3D navigation
until 2030.
Yeah, right. Legacy contacts, universal control. There's quite a few features they've talked about that just.
I don't know if universal control is delayed because I don't think has the release version of macOS come out yet?
You need Monterey, right?
Yeah, I don't know if.
So maybe when Monterey comes out.
Yet.
Any word about Monterey? Do we know? It'll probably come out when they announce new Macs, right? Or no?
It's usually a little bit out. They try to get it fairly close because sometimes there's compatibility. Like you can't use the new notes on iOS without the new notes, but it's almost always been a little bit after.
Okay. So, and since we don't know when the new Macs are going to be announced, we don't know when Monterey will be.
I want them now.
I want both of them now. You're probably on the beta of Monterey. How many betas do we have? Where are we now in the beta? Do you know?
Oh, I don't even know anymore because it's not on my production. I'm Alex Lindsay about my production machine.
As you should be. Now that you're a YouTube star, you can't.
Yeah, Final Cut doesn't launch. It's not very much.
Beta
fun.
7 came out today.
Nice.
So that means we're pretty far along. It's pretty close to complete, right? There's no magic number, but Beta 7 seems like we're getting close to release. But nothing. Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. And if they did, they couldn't say. How's that doggy? Is he sweet? Is he a nice puppy to pat? There was a bit of a kerfuffle over the swipe keyboard appearing in the new Apple Watch.
Oh, man.
And I have to say, I feel pretty bad for Costa Eleftheriou, who was the developer of FlickType, which was, well, pretty much exactly the same Apple Watch swipe keyboard. His story is, in January of 2019, he received a message from Apple. Let's see. In January 2019, January 24th, he demoed it for the Apple Watch team. January 24th, 2019. He says a senior engineer gushed about it. Apple's head of keyboards sent him a message saying Apple should buy this from you. It could be a key feature for the watch. That's 2.5 years ago. That evening, on January 24th, 2019, he received a message from Apple saying that they were pulling it from the store. Specifically, the app is a keyboard for Apple Watch. For this reason, your Apple will be removed from sale on the Apple Store. We reported it at the time. People were upset, but, okay. This Tuesday, of course, last Tuesday, Apple revealed its swipe keyboard. Costa tweeted, "So now we know. See ya in court." And now he is suing Apple for being Sherlocked, and actually has a pretty strong complaint. Actually, he sued in March.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like exactly. We won't know we don't know the truth behind this until, once again, as with Epic, that Apple is forced to give up documents and forced to give up internal communications, and that's one of the reasons why it's important that they have this out, because if the accusations the developer is making are pretty darn horrible. This isn't as bad. This isn't like, oh, well, gosh, you think that Apple would never have come up with the idea of having a keyboard on the Apple Watch if you hadn't given them the idea? Come on. But no, that's not the allegation that he's making. He's making that the engineer in charge of mobile keyboards was gushing over this app, loved it, say, hey, please demo it for us. Maybe we should even buy it from you. And then as soon as that big demo happened, he's alleging dominoes immediately started falling, and almost by the time his takeout order from lunch was cold, he was told, "Oh, we've suddenly decided that because your app is a keyboard app for the watch, it can't be in the App Store anymore. So we're removing it immediately." And then he was saying that he did nothing when other developers stole the idea and put that on the App Store as well. So this is a lot of stuff that, again, it's unknown how much of this is true, unknown who has the right side of this, but this is the sort of thing where, as people who hope that Apple acts positively in as many of their interactions as possible, it's going to be very, very important for them to put forth, no, this absolutely did not happen, and we can. And when we hand over internal communications, you're going to see that was not the tone of the conversations we were having internally.
Yeah. So let me get the timeline correct, because I'm myself confused. January of 2019 shows it to them. They pull it from the store. Apple says, oh, it was a mistake, we put it back. Well, that took a year. January 2020, FlickType was returned to the Apple Store. In fact, became one of the number one paid app in the entire store. It made $130,000 in the first month. Was one of Apple's top paid apps in 2020. He sued in March, saying that year cost me, well, you can see it might have cost me as much as $1 million in lost revenue that I would have had. And now he says he expects, because of Apple putting that functionality into the watch, it's the end of the line for FlickType.
Now,
so
what I wasn't clear about reading the article was whether the rule existed before or after he showed it to Apple. Like, was there a rule that said you can't have a keyboard on a phone, on a watch before he showed it? Because what it sounds like is what'll be interesting to see is the engineer goes, "Wow, this is great," and shows it to his supervisor. And supervisor says, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that.
What? You can't do that.
That's against the rule that already exists." So that might have been, and that's how that happens real quick. Go ahead.
There's usually like this issue, like they keep the rules ambiguous because they want some wiggle room, because what Steve Jobs said was unexpected causes. Like, they never want to say there's no rule preventing this, so suddenly there's porn all over the store. So they keep it unnecessarily ambiguous. But also they have very conflicting goals internally. Like, many years they'll have a new app that's approved by the review team and plastered all over the app store as like a shining example of what is possible with the new operating system. And because App Review or some other faction in Apple is super busy at release time, they don't even see it. Then they go back 2 weeks later to go, no, we just generally don't think this is going to be a good experience. We don't want this to be encouraged, so we're going to reject the app, and then people will know we don't want it anymore. And that's like the worst way, the most evil way to deal with people who are working so hard on your platform. And I'm reminded always of James Thompson, who Apple internally said, yeah, we're making these new widgets, but there's no way anybody could fit anything active in there. And James Thompson's like, oh, I can put a whole calculator in there. And then it got approved, it got showcased, highlighted, look at the amazing widgets. And then they go, oh, but we don't want to encourage people putting apps and widgets. We'll reject it. And then people will learn they're not supposed to put it. And it is just the worst way to interact with developers, but it happens over and over again. And my guess is that this will be a double tragedy, because I'm sure someone in Apple loved this keyboard. Someone else said, we don't want to encourage this on the watch, just as a blanket BS philosophical thing. And then someone else said, oh my God, this is so good, I'm going to make it. And none of them talk to each other. And now thanks to Apple Legal, they can't talk to anybody. And it'll be a whole drawn out legal process when it should have just been someone at Apple going, oh, this is amazing. Can we buy it from you, please?
Hey, speaking of James
100%.
Thompson, are you in regular touch with him? Because I'm a little worried about him. Did you read his blog post?
I didn't. I saw him tweeting though, and I sent him a lot of
his blog,
mini
3-letter
fake love.
acronym. It's at tla.systems. It talks about burnout, and he sounds severely burnt out. I didn't realize he's had chronic neuropathy for 20 years, which means unspecified pain that they can't find a cause for or treat. And then he's losing his vision in his eye, and I'm starting to feel really bad for him. He says, I'm not trying to ask for pity. He's just saying we should all be we're all a bit broken right now, and pretending to each other everything is fine is not actually helping anybody. Life is not normal. So James, we love you. We love what you do, and I hope everything's going to be okay, and if there's anything we can do, let us know. And everybody should run out and buy PCalc, which is his bread and butter.
And he's always like day and date. Anytime like a new thing, like we joked, oh, you're going to have the first calculator on the TV. And he's like, I am.
Well, that's one of the reasons he says that he hasn't been doing a lot this year. You haven't seen the regular updates that you'd normally see. So I'm actually glad you wrote about it. He wasn't asking for sympathy or pity. He was saying, look, we got to all speak up because we're all suffering a little bit. And I have to say, this is the return of the pandemic has not been a
2020
welcome.
Junior has not been kind.
2020 plus one. So anyway, James, take care. Okay. And if any of you are in touch with him, please give him our best.
You are your own most successful and beloved product. Everything else is just bonus material.
I agree.
You're our panda.
He is a very, very important part of the Apple community, and not just as a developer, but as a person. So,
telling him right now.
Good. When I read that blog post, I was like, I had no idea, because you wouldn't know when you talk to him. You wouldn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea.
Can I just say as an aside that this is one of the fundamental precepts of human interaction, particularly online, that people who you think are doing just great oftentimes are not. They're just really great at making you think they're doing great, because that's part of how they're coping with their not great situation.
I tell my kids that all the time. Don't judge your insides by other people's outsides. What you see on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok is the presentation. Not,
we talk about it
also,
a lot.
You don't know. They could be having the worst day of their life when they say, like, even if they say something mean to you on Twitter, like, it might be literally the worst day of their life.
I always
try to keep
assume
that in mind.
When people are mean, I have to remind myself it's about what's going on with them, not what's going on with me.
That's
it's hard, but it's true.
It's very hard.
That's why I totally turn off whenever someone says, "Oh, you wait till you see this total Karen have a total meltdown."
Yeah.
So, okay. Again, maybe she is being extremely mean and unfair to this employee somewhere, but you don't know what kind of email, what kind of text message they just got from her ex-wife about what's happening with the divorce proceedings, and that happened right after being shouted down in 7 different meetings at work. And we try to be at our best every time, but sometimes it's like we have exactly 1 gallon of coping in the tank. And oh boy, if you tell me that the thing that the dry cleaning that was going to be picked up at 4 p.m. won't be ready till 4:20, and I just got 1 milliliter of this stuff left, bad things can happen, and that's understandable.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. We have lots more to talk about. Rene Ritchie's here, youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. He has a very good, very detailed video reviewing the new iPhones. Awesome. And maybe someday he'll have something to say about the new iPad mini. If he doesn't, I will, because I'm getting it Friday.
Good. I can't wait. I want to see you do that.
And I am not under an embargo of any kind, as you well know. But of course, as a result, it cost me a lot of money to buy this stuff. Andy Ihnatko, he's here. And Andy, you and I have to say, I am going to buy the Pixel 6. I'm pretty sure. So,
me too.
That may be what I'm saving money for.
It'll be, again,
or the Pixel Fold.
There's a very strong rumor that they have a folding phone. They'll announce
forward to that
next month as well.
Because I like their software better than Samsung's, and I want a foldable.
Well, I'm bummed because I bought the flip phone.
Yeah. Can I just say that I love the vibrant environment we have in flexibility. Tomorrow it looks like Microsoft will almost certainly reveal like the next edition
the Duo.
of their Surface Duo, which last year if you're talking about wanting to like try to use an iPad Mini as a phone, now it suddenly seems less ridiculous. How about an iPad Mini with a hinge, like an actual mechanical hinge in the middle, and two screens that flop down?
I just Scotch tape mine
because
I bought it when it came out and returned it within the time frame because it was $1,500.
And also not really.
I loved the hardware, but the software didn't live up to it.
I love the idea. If developers absolutely embraced and got on board the same way that they got on board development for multi-touch full screen apps on the iPhone, it could be really, really something. It's not going to tempt me in my mythical envelope filled with money that's taped to the bottom of my desk drawer, waiting to buy the next my next top tier.
I have
smartphone.
Lisa's credit card. I'm just saying. Just saying. Actually, this
and you know her billing address.
This is dude.
I've always thought that Lisa was wonderful. I've always said such wonderful things about her and everything she does.
Can I just add one quick thing? So I was watching Linus Tech Tips video about the different Samsung flip phones and how YouTube Creator Studio was completely broken in different ways on every single one of them, including the amount of menu options you'd get for incredibly bog standard things. And he was just saying, but then every year when there's a new iPhone before the embargo, Instagram is broken. Like you can't use the search box. Yeah. The things are way too wide. This is on iOS. They make it so easy for you to have apps, and the screen size doesn't even change, like year to year, most years. And
you
it
have
still
one
breaks.
manufacturer, making all the hardware and the software.
Well,
and Instagram is still broken.
And it's still
Facebook,
a lot of it has to do with
Facebook.
It's a lot of it has to do with people writing their own libraries. So that's when you see an app getting broken, it's because they've decided I want to
stock way. Yeah,
they want to do it. I want to do it my way rather than making a call.
They also hard code devices. Which means that it doesn't understand that it's the exact same screen.
But
it doesn't
Apple will
recognize
handle
iPhone
all of
12.
that. I mean, it's all designed to handle that.
It can. It can, but there's things like I'm working on. Anyway, I've worked on projects where you do have to hard code things because you just can't get it to work. Like it's not doing what you want it to do, and you're going, okay, I'm just going to freeze this right here and make this work. And so the thing is that the hard coding is sometimes because you're trying to do something that the system just won't do in its automatic mode. And so there is a reason to do that, but it does, every time you do that, you're putting a string that something's going to get pulled and it's going to rip apart something on the other side of the door. And so you have to be very careful. Like we try to lean towards off the shelf, like Apple's libraries. Stepping away from that is like last resort. Like we can't figure out how to do this, so we're just going to make it and do it this way. But a lot of people get creative and they think, oh, I can do it better, and so they start doing that. But can you do it better with every update is the question, right? And so
they have no safe zone. Like they did their own safe zone for the notch, and it doesn't work. It's like there's the pictures going underneath the.
Oh, look at that!
And things are too
is that
wide.
Instagram?
That's when they're writing their own libraries.
Here the search bar is underneath the notch on
either writing their own libraries or hard coding dimensions, which is more likely to me, and I think that's really ridiculous.
Yeah. I know you're trying to get a commercial. I will let you do that, but I couldn't leave without mentioning that as I've been talking about iPad OS. Even Apple is having those kind of problems where when you have a couple of different apps side by side, the tops they don't match. Like they both have the same a triple dot navigation thing that's new in the new iPad OS, but it's like one app they decided to color all the way to the top of the edge of the screen. The other one decided that they're going to honor whatever the background color of the menu bar or the hardware dingle bar is supposed to be. And it's like, if Apple can't even get.
Well, this is one reason I love
can't control its developers the same
I
way
love
that we think
Reddit because every OCD person in the world posts on Reddit. This dot should be over by 2 millimeters. But it's hysterical. I love it.
Especially
it doesn't bother me, but
for a really big company, it's just different teams with different opinions about how it should be executed. Also, and so it's
if you're not in the Apple world, if you're a programmer in general, these are things every programmer deals with all the time on everything. So there's there's incompatible libraries. This is a battle programmers are fighting all the time. So they don't sometimes it's just easier to
It used to be
hard-code
React Native.
hard-code dimensions.
They fixed some of that.
Yeah, I mean,
Humanity is born into trouble just as surely as the sparks fly upward.
Precisely. Andy Ihnatko with words of wisdom. Also here, Alex Lindsay from 090.media. We should give them a plug. Your day job.
We
Which
do
is
fun things.
14 minutes
that
in
usually
the day.
includes streaming.
Yeah.
No, it's fun because it's. I mean, office hours is this incredible connection with all these people all over the world, and we're talking about production and everything else. And then in 090, mostly what I get to do is I'm going to do streams that no one's ever done before.
Yeah, you apply.
Most of you don't get to see them very often.
You apply that information and then bring it back.
Yeah, we really are out on the bleeding edge of quality and streams.
Actually,
and
that's really a
lot
great
of fun.
reason to go to office hours and stay up on the cutting edge. You get some of the
That's
smartest
where I
people.
find everybody now.
Yeah.
The first place I'm like, okay, so we will staff through office hours, and when we can't find someone, then we hire someone outside of office hours. But it's
I
become
need
kind of my
a
my farm
parabolic
team,
mic man. Where could I go to find that?
Well, and what's funny is that there's just people that have been doing this for 20. It's not like me training everybody.
No,
There's people
no.
who've shown up
Yeah.
that have 30 years experience
Sure.
or 20 years experience, and I just get to find them. That's the hardest part is being able to, when you're doing the kind of work that I do, finding a specialist. I don't care where they are in the world. I just need to know where they are. So office hours gives me that.
It's the modern version of that book that used to come out every year.
Production hub.
Yeah, that would have everybody's name in it. This is a much more modern version of that.
Well, and I actually know them. Like the thing is that they're not a list of like a person in LA. It's like I know that person in LA. I hang out with them in after hours all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of cool, actually. Our show today brought to you by AT&T, who reminds you if there are friends and family you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry, it's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. We thank AT&T for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Right on. Andy and I have been going back and forth about the employee unrest going on at Apple. And it's always been my contention that it's hard to know what the real story is because employees or ex-employees are not constrained. They can talk, they can tweet, but HR and companies can't. And having been in some situations, similar situations myself, I'm always aware of the fact that we don't know the whole story. But it does seem like Tim Cook is facing more and more unrest from employees. There's an Apple II, #Apple II movement. There are activist employees who asked him at an all-hands meeting on Friday what he's going to do about pay equity, because there's concern that women and people of color are not getting paid equally to white men. Andy, I'm going to let you speak about this because I think now it has become a story. And,
once the New York Times devotes a very well done story that also has information about all hands webcast that Tim Cook has done.
Jack,
which
we
he
should give
answered a couple of
credit
these
to
questions.
Jack Nycass and Kellen Browning, the authors of that. That story.
And you are absolutely true. There have been a couple of very high profile stories over the past several months, and as you say, it's hard to know who's right, who's wrong, or what's in the middle, and that's why you're kind of grateful when these stories come out and they decide that they're going to file a suit with the or a complaint with the National Labor Board, because then you have an independent government investigation that gets to the root of this. And my difficulty with a lot of this is that a lot of the complaints seem to follow a roadmap that's really, really been common at Google, at Facebook, at other companies that have had more public complaints about these in the past, where I'm not saying this is what Apple's doing. I'm saying this is the roadmap that we've been seeing, where an employee, usually female, makes a complaint to HR about something. They keep complaining beyond the point at which this large company is interested in continuing to talk about it, at which point they are put on this conveyor belt that of recognizable step by step by step. Here's how we get you out of the company without saying we fired you for making complaints. And so these stories over the past year got my attention at Apple because I have been the things that they've been reporting have been, again, this same playbook over and over again, which is why I've been eager to see an independent labor protection board talk about this. This one, the complaint that seems to be very consistent, however, is not necessarily specific. Oh, pay equity. Oh, they're not treating certain types of employees correctly. But that there is a culture of secrecy at Apple. No duh. But that this culture of secrecy is so deeply ingrained that it also intimidates workers into not complaining, that it creates a culture of keep your yap shut, be grateful, and keep your head down.
Yeah, that's where it becomes more of a story for us, less of a labor stories aren't really our bailiwick, but I'll read you the quote from Nikes and Keller's article in the New York Times. A common theme is that Apple's secrecy has created a culture that discourages employees from speaking out about their workplace concerns, not with coworkers, not with the press, and not on social media. Complaints about problematic managers or colleagues are frequently dismissed, and workers are afraid to criticize how the company does business. Apple is a big company, 150,000 employees. Any big company is going to have bad managers, is going to have problems. It's more the culture, maybe, that is the problem at Apple. That's of secrecy.
People who are good at managing up but terrible at managing down.
Yeah. And that happens everywhere. Look, who hasn't had a job with a manager who the boss loved, but his reports did not? That happens all the time.
Yeah, and it does tie in with, I've been following Apple since professionally since the 90s, and that involves friendships with people who've been working at Apple anywhere from a couple of years to a couple of decades. And this is a constant theme that I keep hearing, that they'll say, "Oh, how have you lasted at Apple so long?" And almost a direct quote is often that, "Well, I try to make sure that that my boss knows who I am. Maybe my boss's boss knows who I am, but I work very, very hard to make sure that no one else knows who I am, because that way, it's much safer."
Especially Steve. You never wanted Steve to know who you were.
Well, it is one thing that
the elevator alone with Steve.
Yes.
In the past 20 years, I've had a variety of partnership interactions and so on and so forth. And, to that point, to what Andy just said, you always wanted to go with the folks that were in the trenches and try to stay away from the executives, just because you just didn't, once things went sideways,
at every company, not just Apple, at every company.
It really is. The fundamental thing is that it is it's very common in the corporate culture to, because there's always a joke in a variety of different corporations, so I think all think that the saying is their own, which is that, you can say whatever you want in the last day. But in a lot of corporate cultures, once you start to, like, whether it's a Google or Facebook or Apple or whatever, if you reach your head up and start complaining about things, you may still work there, but you've basically created a ceiling that you're going to live under for the rest of your career there. You're going to have to move somewhere else, and they're going to have to not know. If you're going from one big corporation to another, they have to not know about your history for you to move up. Because as soon as you complain in any of these corporations like that, you've set up, you've poured some concrete above your head. And so, and that's just the reality of it. It's not, and that's every corporation.
That's
every
that's human.
Yeah,
that's human nature. You got to go along to get along. That's really always.
So long as we're identifying this as an absolute BS problem that exists among large corporations,
it shouldn't happen.
That we need to do away with, and that we need to have higher expectations, particularly of a company like Apple that puts itself as sort of above other companies in terms of doing the right thing.
Well, there's also,
but if we're saying that, what do you expect? If you don't like having your office pumped with radon, maybe you don't deserve to work at Apple.
Right.
I think Apple has a unique problem here because they, like, your greatest strength is often your greatest weakness. And I don't mean this to sound trite, but their culture has been incredibly valuable for them, but it also has an equal and opposite negative effect. Like I remember back in the iPhone antenna gate days, if you had a case on your phone, you were not case loyal to the company.
Right,
And that sounds ridiculous,
Right.
but that's the sort of group think that comes into here.
Textually.
And I think as a company, you've got to be especially careful when your culture is such a known empowering force that the negative consequences are anticipated and specifically assigned to somebody to keep an eye out for and to fix.
And I just want to clarify,
You're going
I'm
to
not-
miss so much.
I want to clarify. I'm not saying that it should be that way. I'm just saying that
right.
that it is like the folks that get to the very top. If you're talking to those executives, they are masters of it. Like they have figured out a way to the facade of how they interact with things. If you're working with them, you have to be super sensitive to them, like closing their eye a little bit. That might be them upset.
Do you think it feels like Tim Cook
anymore.
would not be that? I mean, it feels like he would be very sensitive to any of these issues.
I think
has
that
Apple
there's
Legal on top of him.
Well, that's the problem. It's not just Tim Cook. Yeah.
But I think also there is a when you get into these situations. I mean, I think the hard part is it's oftentimes there he said, she said. There are people being upset about things, and so it just goes through its process. I think that every company is trying to solve this in some way, shape, or form. It's just a lot of human beings around a lot of other human beings, and so that's always going to be an issue, and so it definitely needs to be fixed, but we need to be clear that, I mean, for a long time I had a company with only 30 people and we had all kinds of problems. And so I look at 150,000, I'm like,
I know. I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
I want to give some special thanks to Andy here, because Andy is one of the people that Andy is my gold standard when it comes to journalism. And whenever I have any question, he is so beyond generous in answering it for me and helping me. And my big concern here, which I spoke to Andy about, and he was super helpful, was that I worry about, I don't mind making fun of Epic. Epic's a company. They have billions of dollars. Not just fun of, I'll make fun of Apple and Epic, but when it's a giant company like Apple against a specific human that I've put a face to, I just feel like I have to be so careful, not because I'm worried about damaging a person who might be severely damaged already, just unintentionally, but also one person. I think this is a problem with the companies. One person is easily dismissed. Like they could say, what's going on in your organization? Oh, that person has a history of being, overly sensitive about this stuff. Oh, okay, it's fine. But that's why I think it's so important that Apple does this writ large and has vast troves of information about this, because once it's 1,000 people, it's very hard to dismiss. 10,000 people, impossible to dismiss, and that's when it becomes an EC issue.
I also think it's important for Apple to examine the whole, because I have to say there's parallels between this and how the App Store is handled. And so there's cultural, there might be some cultural dysfunction that Apple needs to really look at and address to become a better company.
I wanted to compare it to how they work with how they deal with contract labor in China, where I think Apple has an exceptional record in this regard. Where this is to the point of, it's hard to run a company at this scale and not have these problems. That is absolutely true when you're trying to manufacture something at scale, to make sure that every worker who handles something that goes into your phone is being treated fairly, is not being abused, is being paid exactly what they've been promised to be paid, and their health and well-being is being considered at every step. That's a problem that no company is going to be rid of. Apple, however, did treat that like it was a very, very important priority. And while it is still a problem because it is impossible to completely solve it, I do think they have deserved a very, very good reputation for being, look, if you're a subcontractor, if you want to lose this contract with Apple, here's how you do it. You screw up these terms in the contract that are absolutely explicit and that will be followed up on point by point by point before this contract is renewed. So that's why I think that Apple should be able to not solve these problems, but at least show that they have a more of an active interest than let's get rid of this troublemaker. And the other reason why this is I should mention that this is this New York Times article is so valuable that it is incredible that Tim Cook, Apple's answered questions from workers in an all-staff meeting for the first time since these concerns surfaced publicly. Isn't it incredible that we are seeing in print description of an all-hands meeting inside Apple, just like the day that it happened? And one of the things that I thought
leaked, in other words, leaked by an employee.
Exactly. But Addie was live tweeting it until somebody yelled at her to stop, which is I've not seen that before.
Right. But what I want to get to, that one of the topics that was brought to him is how are you going to deal with Apple employees who work in Texas who now have to deal with this incredible anti-abortion law? And he said that the company insurance coverage for the time being being will cover travel expenses for people who can't get an abortion without leaving the state. And I thought that that was exactly sort of proactive. Look, you are a multi-trillion-dollar company. You actually, and you also have control over your own health insurance because of the way you've chosen to do it. So if you have the ability to say, guess what? If you we think of this not as a legal issue or as a moral issue, but as appropriately as a women's health issue. And so if you decide that this is a procedure you need, we are not going to let Texas law get in your way. We will pay for you to travel to a state where this thing is accessible and safe.
So Google has had similar problems, Andy, and
absolutely,
I think has fumbled it as best I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, this is again most notably how they. I would still objectively say fired Dr. Timnit Gebru of one of their two top ethical artificial intelligence researchers. That this is why some of these stories coming out of Apple concern me, because once again it's a playbook where they realize that, okay, this is now this problem that we're having with this one employee is now above the surface of above which PR can contain. We are obviously going to fire her because we don't want her anymore, but we can't answer the question that, oh, well, we fired her because she was raising questions about our ethical review of our own research. We have to be able to say, it broke our hearts that she's tendered her resignation immediately, but we hated to accept it, but we wish her well, and how hard. Well, no, that's not. And she's saying, no, that's not what I said. I said that we have to talk about this. We have to then talk about what my exit is going to be. Similarly, one of the reports is that someone had requested and received voluntary leave. At the end of this, she was charged with disseminating internal product-facing Apple secrets, and that's the reason. And she refused to cooperate with an internal investigation upon her breach of security, and for this reason, we were disappointed in her, but she was fired. But her side of it is that no, I responded to that email immediately saying that, hey, let's do this via email, because now that I have a grievance filed with the NLRB, I really want to have a record of this. Heard nothing back. Said, well, because you refused to talk to us about this, I'm afraid our interaction is terminated. That's the sort of stuff that kind of gets you bothered. And largely, the other thing that even as this stuff was going down with Google and with other companies, it is notable that we haven't been hearing these stories coming out of Apple, and that means that either what we hope is happening, which is that Apple is not having these problems, and certainly not at this scale, because they are handling these issues in a much more positive way, a way that we would more approve of, or B, they're just really, really good at either directly or indirectly intimidating people to keep your yap shut. Accept the resolution we have provided for you, which we have deemed to be an appropriate resolution to your complaint, and enjoy the burritos in the lunchroom. So this is why it is a very positive thing to have these things come out. It shows that people are feeling less intimidated by the process, and that we will have objective third parties look at these complaints and find out, is there a huge issue that we've been overlooking all along, or is this, as we've been talking about, one possibility, this is a company with 150,000 employees. They're not going to handle every single issue as well as we would like, simply by virtue of scale, but there is no endemic problem of employee abuse inside of Apple.
Meanwhile, Ted Lasso got 11.
Leo, sorry, before we move on, can I add one last thing before we move on?
Yes, please do. All right, I was trying to move on. Okay.
No, this is just a general thing about tech. One of the issues, I don't want to call it a problem, but one of the issues in tech in general is that these are all young, feisty, upstart companies. They do not have crisis PR. They don't have crisis advisors. Some of them bring them in, but companies like the auto industry, politics,
they've been through this a few times.
Big companies, they have teams, they have advisors, they have people who know how to handle all. These tech companies just it's left to product people basically to handle, and that's why I think we see so much more friction in tech media than we see in a lot of more established industries.
Yeah,
I'll just one quick response. Apple was, the last time they were doomed was the mid-90s, and they'd already been in business for 20 years before then. They are also, again, a multi-trillion-dollar company. They can't. Well, they can't. They can't claim that, what do you expect from us? We were only a $2 trillion company, and we're only 50 years old. Yeah. We're still finding our feet in this. We're still just two slap happy hippies in a garage trying to change the world.
I'm just saying it's a mentality. It's not a.
There's another difference in the tech industry, which is there is a the engineers have a lot more power in the workplace than an auto worker on an assembly line. So these, even though they haven't unionized at Google or Apple, the engineers have a huge amount of value to the company, and as a result,
and there's no unions,
and there's no unions, and they have, as a result, a big voice. And so, I think that it's a very different from old line industrial.
Absolutely. This isn't like another story about labor at. I won't name the company, but it's one of the happier places on earth, apparently. That about consumer facing employees who are on food stamps. Exactly, isn't it? After all, it really is. And the complaints that they get paid so little, and they're living because their place of work is a popular tourist destination. They have to live so far away in order to just find a place they can afford to stay in, that a lot of them are on food stamps. A lot of them have times of where they can't feed themselves, and they don't have homes. So so we have
like
to
most of the workers in California.
Exactly. So I'm saying that these engineers, at least that they are being paid well, they can afford to live with their living, they can afford to feed their families, but that still doesn't mean that
And the handcuffs that are usually referred to here as the golden handcuffs, which are the 401ks, and a lot of what keeps people from saying anything is that they're going to make millions if they don't rock the boat, and so that keeps a lot of people pretty quiet and keeps their head down because literally you're there for it's been a big a lot of people have made bought houses in cash with what they made at Apple by staying there long enough. And so staying there long enough is part of the game, and some people just don't do it. They just go, okay, I got to go, because it's usually not because they're being mistreated. It's just because it's a big corporation, and it just works like a big corporation. And so, but I think that I think that a lot of times when you see people with any of these companies, the 401ks are significant, and that people think about that a lot, when they decide they're going to speak out.
My workers are being beaten with Hermes whips. That's really quite luxurious.
I'm just saying that's one of the calculations for a lot of people is just that there's a lot of not getting moved from level 5 to level 6 over your career. It's not so much you're going to get fired for saying something. It's that you're not going to go from whatever it is, level 4 to level 5 or level 5 to level 6, and that delta will cost you $1 million. Like that's the just not getting fired, but just not moving up. Yeah. And so that's a deep calculation in that process.
Don't you think though that leads to inherently to abuse by management, saying that we can really push these people around a lot farther than we could if they had the wherewithal to leave immediately?
I think you have a handful of, with any 150,000 people, you have a lot of people that are going to be problematic, both on the management side and on the employee side. And so I think that again, I had a very small version of that, and it was a lot. And so I can't imagine it being multiplied. And so the thing is that when we see tens or hundreds of people being upset, I maybe there's a lot more. I don't know that, but something under 1%, I think is still an anomaly. Most of these companies, when you are working inside of them, the amount of care they take towards most of these things, because they just look at every person complaining to a labor board is a huge liability for the corporation. It's super expensive for them to have that happen, and so most people in these companies that are brazenly problematic as far as managers don't last very long, unless they're really high performance, but most of them don't last very long in there because they just can't. People complaining internally is still too expensive for them to manage. So I just don't think that, I'll be really surprised if we find out that it's like it's endemic, in the thing, because most of these companies have a lot of procedures and a lot of places for you to, put stuff in. So we'll see.
Can we talk about TV now?
Yeah.
Please. Okay. After we forgot to ask Rene, are you buying the new Hermes Apple Watch band that was announced?
Oh yeah.
We haven't had a chance to ask you about that yet.
Where's the Hermes whip?
I mean, I don't think so. And there's a Hermes. Did we talk about this? There's a Hermes Apple iPhone case that's available as well.
My God.
You have to get it from Hermes in North America. It's only available in the Apple stores.
What is this?
In London.
What is this thing? It looks like a pretzel. What is that? coming off the Hermes
Yeah.
band. It's like they have a name for it? It's a single tour?
Fashion, Leo.
It's fashion.
If you and I don't understand it, it costs twice as much. The less you understand it, the more it costs.
It's the Gourmet Double Tour Band. And by the way, I'm not mispronouncing gourmet. It's spelled E-T-T-E, Gourmet Double Tour Band. Pays homage, and this is why you're going to want. This is why you're going to want it. Plays homage to the iconic Hermes dog collars from the 30s.
Oh, you dog.
Oh, you dog. By the way, that's not a pretzel. It's supple Fauve Barenia
It's
leather.
caramel. Oh my god.
It does look like a pretzel. How about this is the double tour? This is the I don't know.
So what does Rene have?
What are you going to get? What is going to be your new band? Oh, he can't talk about that either, probably. Nice boy. Good boy. Nice puppy. All right. Silence reigns. Emmy Awards. So, congratulations to Apple TV Plus's Ted Lasso, which got a lot of nominations, 20 nominations, nailed 7 Emmy Awards on Sunday night, including, gosh, I can go on and on. Jason Sudeikis, lead actor, Hannah Waddingham, who's the team owner, and Brett Goldstein, supporting actors. But and if you think that sounds good, well, let's just keep working our way up the list. Disney Plus won 14. Oh no, wait a minute. It's 7 trophies. The Mandalorian scored 7 trophies. Marvel, WandaVision, 3 Emmys. And Disney Plus's Hamilton won an Emmy for Best Pre-Recorded Variety Special. I shouldn't complain about that. I got an Emmy for being Best Virtual Reality Character. It's nice to be in a smaller category. I'm just saying, with less competition. I was competing against a sock puppet. So but all of that pales. This really was the year of the streamers, to Netflix, which won 44 Emmys.
How many Emmys are there total?
I don't know. There must be thousands.
I will say, you meet a lot of people in LA, and they've got lots of Emmys behind them, and I'm always like, how did
they're really devaluing the value of the Emmy? Yeah. 44 Emmys. The Crown won 11 Emmys. Queen's Gambit won 11 Emmys. Netflix tied a record for the most wins for a single platform set by CBS back in 1974. HBO got 19. Yeah, it sounds like there's thousands of them, doesn't it? Nevertheless, it's really good for the streamers. They are now, there's no question, when Steven Spielberg a couple of years ago said streaming movies should not be allowed in the Oscars, I think that is now obviously an out-of-date point of view. The number one network, the number one broadcast network only got 8 Emmys total, NBC.
Right, and obviously COVID has pushed things forward a decade.
Yes.
Just moved it, just shifted the whole thing, and it's a classic disruption. Is that disruption is really when the market moves faster than the incumbents can keep up with, you have disruption. And so in this case, usually it's some mover and shaker to do it. In this case, it was a pandemic. That just disrupted everything by just moving this block over to this block instead of, and there's just no clean direction there. And so I think that it's the future at this point. The die is cast.
Yeah. Mayor of Easttown from HBO, which now is really HBO Max. It's a streamer, won 10 of the 12 acting awards.
I love that show because it's basically a BBC show airing on American television, and people just lose their minds for it.
That's right.
But the British are like, this is every show. This is all of our shows.
All of our shows are just
you
like
colonials.
this.
Yes. This was Broadchurch, right? It was
Broadchurch. It was their version of Broadchurch. Yeah. Yeah, except it with water. Water. I May Destroy You, Mayor of Easttown, Underground Railroad, WandaVision, The Boys, Bridgerton, The Crown. Oh, boy. All streaming. It's kind of amazing.
I'd like to point out how hard it is to find out how many Emmys there actually are.
I'm looking. I have the list of all the nominees. It's a lot of There's a
I've been
lot of
bouncing
them.
around trying to find where is there a list
It's
of the number?
scrolls and scrolls and scrolls and scrolls
I went to
and scrolls.
Statista, thinking they'll give me the stats, and no, you can't have that.
There's the final one. Okay. Anyway, congratulations. I mean, I don't know. I'm one of the few people who doesn't really enjoy Ted Lasso, but okay. I know you love it, Rene.
There's a huge controversy this year because they came back and ordered 2 more episodes, and they'd already finished writing it. So they made these 2 one-off episodes, the Christmas episode and another one, and just randomly inserted them in the season. And people have lost their minds because it's out of continuity.
Oh,
the dates are wrong. The
God.
scores are wrong.
What a
and
mess.
they're not like, and they're like, what happened to the character development here? And they're just like, we had to add 2 episodes. We're sorry.
We are right in that meat of that timeline where people love this show so much that as soon as they give them something that doesn't remind them of everything they've ever loved about this show, they're going to lose their minds, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, if season 7 and 8 turn out badly, it's gonna be a lot of trouble.
like the final seasons of House, exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's take a little time out, and when we come back, your picks of the week, if you don't mind, my friends. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. Did you know that 36 million address changes were processed by the Postal Service last year? 36 million. It's not just mailing addresses. Emails change even more rapidly. Phone numbers. Having customer address data that's accurate is critical for the success of your business. That's why people love Melissa. Melissa has a renewal rate of 92%. 92% year-over-year, proof that people love Melissa and get value for their money. You'll love it too. Melissa's tools have helped businesses maintain fresh data for over 35 years. 10,000 businesses trust Melissa, the address experts. They've been doing this a long time. You can verify addresses, of course, but also emails, phone numbers, names. You can get rid of duplicates with Melissa's data matching. Duplicate entries waste money. You send multiple mailings to the same address, same people. It also annoys your customers. You can get information to complete your customer profiles, customer demographic info, like marital status, social media handles. And what's great about Melissa is you can deploy it however works best for you. Of course, there's an on-prem solution, but there's also a web service. There's even a secure FTP site you can upload your address data to and then download a cleaned version instantly. There's software as a service. They have APIs. In fact, you can actually take a look at the APIs. They have new lookup apps now on iOS and Android that use the API, and you can search addresses, names, and more right in the app. Melissa is, of course, very careful with your data. They understand privacy is job one. They continually undergo independent security audits to reinforce that commitment. Data security, data privacy, and maybe you care most about compliance, SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. And man, if you sign up for that service level agreement, because Melissa's Global Support Center has 24/7 world-renowned support, the best in the business. Ask them about it because it's fantastic. COVID-19 is not over. Melissa still supports communities and qualifying essential workers with 6 months of free service. Apply online at melissa.com. And by the way, congratulations, Melissa. Named a leader in address verification and data quality by G2 Crowd in their spring 2021 report. I can't even name anybody else. Melissa's the one. 240 plus countries and territories. They can verify addresses, names, and more at the point of entry. You can even use the API to write it into your own software. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa, Melissa, melissa.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. We thank you for supporting MacBreak Weekly by using that address. If you want to know more about Melissa, please make sure you go to melissa.com/twit so they know you saw it here. Alex, Lindsay, do you have a pick for us this week?
I do. So one of the things that we do a lot of as we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next is we build diagrams, of this is where all the hardware is going to go. We're going to have the tape decks go into the mixer or the router, and the router is going to go to this, and the route, and all these things. We start building up all of these drawings. And a lot of what we've done is in OmniGraffle or Visio or other things. But finally, we have someone who's an AV person actually building these. So John Barker has a thing called Here to Record. And one of the apps that he has created is called Gear. And what Gear does is that he has pre-built, and he lets you build them as well, all of these, A10 minis and HDX, networks and everything else. And they know that there's video. This is a video input, and this is an audio input, and this is and what it lets you do is you start because usually what happens is the first hour of each one of these is setting up all the little things that I'm going to use for my router, and I'm going to set up this, and I'm going to set up that, and you're setting these all up instead of just being able to add them and connect them, and so anyway, so what he's built is this nice, easy way for you to lay out a technical graph of your system, and it's
but it's
just
smart.
It's
smart,
really
so it knows what connects to what, and it can't connect the mic to a video input and things like that.
Exactly, which is usually what we don't have in other drawing packages.
Right.
I can do this in OmniGraffle, which I've done for since version 1 or almost version 1, and there's still things that I still graph out there, but I'm more and more finding myself using this or experimenting with this. Is like, okay, and I've started to build ones in here, and it's nifty.
Plus, it builds a list for your packing.
Yeah. Because here's the thing: is this is a person who does video production, who also writes code, which is just the best. Because
he's scratching his own itch, but then we all benefit. Yeah.
And then we can just throw him some change and have him put it together. So it's a subscription service. I don't remember how much it is, but
it's very affordable. There's a starter pack that's free. There's $5 for a personal and $15 for a pro plan. This is very, very affordable. He's actually,
and if you do this all the time, or even if you do it some of the time, it's super valuable to be able to throw something together, because when you want to go build that yourself, again, you have that pack that's going to tell you what you're going to need to do it, or you're going to be able to send this out to somebody, and so it's a printout of it, out to somebody else. And so, and he is he's a very active person inside of our office hours community. So what we like about it also is that when we complain about things happen really quickly because he's usually there. So he's so he listens to a lot of our input on. We really wish we had this, or we really wish we had that, and he's really part of it. So it's I have to kind of say that because we get special. Anybody in office hours gets heard faster, but he hears everybody, and he's really responsive to his own community. He's got a great YouTube channel as well, where he talks about a lot of this stuff, and just someone who really is into it, and really part of the audio video community in general, in addition to making a great app. So
this is a great find for me, because I've been looking for a way to set up my home, to map out my home system, which is insanely complicated, and it's free for up to 2 different plans. So I can totally do this for free. That's great, and I see it supports the A10 Mini and all the things all the
things we use. Yeah, exactly. It's a really it's really set up, especially if you're in that kind of. For a lot of us that are in the sub $150,000 project, production thing, it's got most of the tools that you would need.
Very cool. H2R-gear.com. H2rgear.com. That's a great pick. Thank you, Alex. Mm-hmm. And it's a 0 Alex pick. Amazing.
Every once in a while, got to give you guys a break.
Every once in a while. Andy Ihnatko, pick of the week.
He's just feeling extra guilty about what he's going to hit us with next week.
I'm sure we'll pay for it in the long run. Yeah.
I mentioned how happy I am with all the productivity enhancements that iPadOS 15 has dropped onto my iPad Pro, and that's a great time to single out Ulysses, which is really it's a rising tide that floats all productivity app boats, so to speak. So Ulysses, which has always been one of my favorite productivity apps for the iPad and iOS and the Mac, it gets so much better now that it's so much to use Ulysses within the context of other apps. For instance, I've always had the ability to have Omni Outliner in a narrow column to the left, and then Ulysses in the main sort of part of the window, and use Ulysses to sort of as a scratch pad and to organize ideas of something long that I'm trying to write, and then refer back to that when I'm writing Ulysses. Now it's so easy to access that kind of stuff that it really does feel as as though Omni Outliner is just a feature of Ulysses. It's supporting everything that Apple has thrown into iOS 15. Excuse me, iPad OS. I'm sorry. I hard line on this. There is iOS, and it runs on it runs on the iPhone. It runs on the iPad. I'm not even going to upper lowercase it correctly. I don't care. That's who I am. But it supports all that stuff, and all these integrations when you're maintaining not only different sort of work views, but also when you can have different implementations and different windows that you kind of need to navigate between. It really shows off exactly how powerful Ulysses is, and it's as good as an app as it's always been, even before that, where it's become my go-to app for on the iPad, where I just need to open a text document to write things into that text document and then save that as a text file and or use it someplace else. It's not just a simple text editor, but it is exceptionally good at being that lightweight thing where it doesn't have to be as big and complicated as a Scrivener project, which is also one of my favorite productivity apps. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't have to be as cloud-based share-y workflowy as a Google Docs app. It really is. I'm saving it on device. It doesn't matter if I have connection to the internet. Of course, it will sync across to if I had an iPhone, my iPhone to my Mac, because there's Ulysses on the Mac as well. iCloud integration works extremely well, but it's exactly the sort of thing that I need to have a really good muscular text editor for all the, again, one and done sort of one-off writing or collections of writing that I do on the iPad. Things that don't amount to like a novel, things that are not going to take me like weeks and months to write. We're talking about I need to write show notes for NPR this weekend, or there's an article I want to create for the blog or whatever, and I want to hash it out here before I go someplace else. This is what it's super, super good at. And it also supports shortcuts and workflows really, really well as well. So I also got into this earlier this year, where I just use it as a repository for output of shortcuts that I run on the iPad. Like when I'm doing this sort of 3 a.m., I'm 3 hours into a research drag. It's going to be 2 hours before I go to bed again. And I'm just collecting quotes and snippets that I want to sort of consolidate somewhere, where it's so easy simply for me to create a workflow, a shortcut that will just simply attach to a share sheet. So by the time I sober up in the morning and it's 1 p.m. and I'm finally awake and I see what the hell was I up to last night, and I will see this nice 4,000 word Ulysses document with nothing but like hundreds of quotes and snippets of data and references that I can now base an entirely new level of stuff that I'm working on from. So great stuff. It's not cheap. It's $50 a year or $5.99 a month, but it is one of those things where it very, very quickly became an important app that justifies the expense that I've laid out for this iPad, and it would be very, very hard to do without it at this point, I think.
Yeah, and I think that the reason you pay for stuff like this is a perfect example, is because you're going to get an iOS 15 update on day and date. They're working on it because they're making money.
You want them to be around, right? Yeah. And also, I absolutely understand the arguments about, geez, I just want to buy this app and own this app. I don't want to have to do a subscription. But the thing is, they keep improving it and they keep adding things to it. And the fact that you're buying a subscription means that you're always getting a better product. And if it is something that you are basing so much of your workday around, as I do with Ulysses, it's just nothing but frosting and a cherry on top of that, and then caramel over the top of that, and sprinkles on top of that. And now I'm describing something really, really sickening, so I've kind of lost the analogy. But you know what I'm talking about. You're happy to keep paying the money just to make sure that they keep making Ulysses, because it's a great thing that I think the iPad needs. Apple gets a lot of credibility off of an app like this being available for the iPad, the Mac, and the iPhone. Nice. Yeah, and the integrations are really extensive now, which is really cool. That's great. Again, it'll integrate to whatever you want to do. This is what I want in a text editor. Whatever I want to do, it will help me do that. Great. Thank you, Andy. Rene, Ritchie, pick of the week.
So this is esoteric, but I have this first videographer problem where I'm creating these massive video files, and like I complained about with the iPhone, I can't get them off fast enough. And I originally had a USB-C card reader, and it was taking forever. So I upgraded to a ludicrously expensive Thunderbolt card reader, and it's ridiculously sized too, because it's for CFexpress cards. which are the same size as basically SD cards. Like the slot is just tiny and it's right there. And all the rest of this I've got to assume is just Thunderbolt nonsense. But it is so fast. Like I can't even get coffee anymore so fast. I stick it in, the thing pops up saying done. And I can't, like, it is such a quality of life improvement to not have to wait like sometimes like 30 minutes for an SD card over a USB-C to pull data. It's like seconds, minutes maybe if I'm doing something ridiculously long. But I can't get over how big the box is, but speed. All I needed from this was to solve the problem of speed, and it absolutely does. It's expensive. It's like $130 US, I think.
Yep.
But wow, does it solve a specific problem for me very, very beautifully.
Very nice. From ProGrade Digital, ProGradeDigital.com. CFexpress Type B and XQD single slot memory card reader with Thunderbolt 3 interface. Yeah.
And they have non-Thunderbolt ones.
They probably have
multiple
others.
ones if you have SD cards.
Yeah, because SD cards would be more useful to me, and yes, they do.
But
have
Thunderbolt is what you're paying the pretty dollars for.
Yeah, of course. That's really annoying. It must be a license fee thing. It must be to Intel.
I forget which phone it was, but somebody, or which computer, maybe it was the Frame, and they're like, it does Thunderbolt. They don't say it does Thunderbolt, maybe licensing reasons, but it does do Thunderbolt.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, and for a long time, Microsoft did not put T3 into their Surfaces. The rumor is tomorrow they'll announce it. We will be covering that event. If for some reason you care about Microsoft, we'll be covering that event tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Paul Thurrott and I talking about. And then, the Duo is interesting. I think it's a very interesting phone. There have been consistent rumors that Apple's looking at folding phones, and now this rumor that Google is going to announce one this year. Maybe this is the year of the fold. I don't know. Thank you, Rene Ritchie. Go to youtube.com/Rene Ritchie for the latest review of the iPhone. He's got some great pictures, explanations. As usual, does a fantastic job. youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. Are you working on another one right now?
Yes, I will have more stuff up this week, and I'm also doing a deep dive on the A15 Bionic because I think people misunderstood what it does, and also on some of the photography and video pipelines that they're using this year.
Nice. Thank you, Rene.
Details.
Andy Ihnatko, when are you going to be on GBH next?
12:30 in the afternoon on Friday. You can listen live or later. Just go to wgbhnews.org and stream it live, or find the recording that will be dropping about a day later.
Nice. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to plug?
Not yet. Hopefully I'll have something to plug in about a month. There's something that is hopefully launching, but I have to keep the pipeline full for a while before I can turn the lights on in the factory. I don't want to turn on the factory and then say, turns out that the factory had to close for a couple of days, but I come back in a week maybe.
And Alex Lindsay, 090.media. If you want to hire this guy, he's the best in the business. If you want to learn how to be the next best in the business, officehours.global. All day, all night, 7 days a week.
It's so much fun.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, we're on Saturdays we now have there's a bar in Belfast called the Accidental Theatre that
Belfast, Ireland?
Yeah. But our group takes over the hardware from the world. So the switching and the graphics and everything else, and even some of the cameras are all going to be controlled by people all over the world. And we play the multi-view from what we're doing back into After Hours. So you get to watch.
And they're all watching it in this bar in Belfast?
Well, the bar is streaming. The bar is streaming to the rest of the world.
Is there anybody in the bar?
The band.
The whole band is there.
Band.
Okay.
Yeah, the band. Yeah, the
but
band's there.
the production is being done all over the world
from all over the world, and
Office Hours team.
You just really get that it's the future. And so we're just doing this for fun. This is like the Office Hours games. So let's take over all the. So it's a really cool thing. But that's on almost every Saturday.
I gotta get my son to get in there and. Although I have to say, a little plug for Henry, Salt_Hank on TikTok. His latest video only has 317,000 views, which compared to 9.5 million for the previous day's video. And this is what's annoying about this. He's cooking.
Damn.
What's annoying about this? He made French onion soup. It took him like 14 hours because he roasted the bones and everything, which was crazy. So, and he's only got 371,000 views. So please, everybody go follow Salt_Hank
I'm getting
Actually,
really hungry. Just
it's only
watching
been 3 hours, so maybe
looks so
it'll
good.
go viral.
Do you think it- hey, do you think you
9.5
would do a-
million? 9.5
Do you think-
million.
Did he give you the soup
Do you-
after, Leo?
No.
Do you think?
What?
Do you think
I'm so
Henry will
mad.
come on office hours and talk us about how he does it?
He has done a lot of research into what works on TikTok, and I think he would
We'd
be
love to
very
bring him
interesting.
on.
I'll tell him. Yeah.
If he wants to talk to our guys.
Yeah. I'm sure he'd love to.
Give him a second hour. Give him an hour to talk about it.
You know, the key to his production was when I gave him my 5D.
Yeah.
And he's got on all the lenses, and he really likes that camera for shooting. But he also uses other He's got a second and third unit, of course, and audio. He's using, believe it or not, some cheap Chinese microphone. He says, I got to upgrade it. I think his audio is fantastic. It's like that's like the key to his whole thing is chopping and sizzling and crunching, and he says he thinks this French onion soup won't be as popular because it doesn't have as much chopping in it. But I think the sizzlings and the guggling
And the wine. That's great.
Edith Piaf.
and I love the Edith Piaf. That's twice he's used it now. I think I take some credit for it. I will paste a link into the chat so people can watch it. It's not for. It's really just to make your mouth water.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. Please join us, won't you? You can watch a live stream, audio or video of the show. Watch or listen, I guess, at twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, chat live, irc.twit.tv. It's a great place because it's all these wonderful people who hang out and talk while we're talking. So it's like the kids in the back of the class. They're so cute. And if you want to do it in Discord, we have a wonderful Discord channel. That's for members of Club Twit. You can be a member. Easy enough. All you have to do is go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. $7 a month gets you a bunch of benefits, including ad-free versions of all shows, access to the fabulous Discord channel where there's conversations not just about the shows, but about other stuff as well. Lots of great chats going on at all times, at all hours of the day or night. Plus the Twit Plus feed, where you get things that didn't make it into the podcasts, before and after show conversations, our Untitled Linux show, Dick DiBartolo's Giz Fizz, and Ask Me Anything. Our new community manager, Aunt Pruitt, is strong-armed Lisa and me into doing an Ask Me Anything. That'll be coming up, I think, Friday. But all of that at twit.tv/clubtwit. And by the way, we are currently working on, a number of people said, hey, we want to just subscribe to one show. We don't want to pay $7 a month for all the shows. You just want a lower price for one show. And we're working on that. We're going to use, I think, the Apple podcast subscriptions for that. But you'll subscribe to one show and only one show. It won't include any of the other benefits, and it'll be a little bit less expensive. So if you just say, I just want MacBreak Weekly ad-free, you can do that. But that's coming. That's not there yet. But I think by October 1st, we'll be doing that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Is there anything more to say? You can download shows at twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel. We have a forums. Our discourse forums are at twit.community. Our Mastodon is at twit.social. We got a lot of ways to interact. I hope you will. We'd like to see you and hear from you. And we'll see you next week. Now get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Do you have an iPhone, an Apple Watch, an iPad, or any number of Apple devices? Well, you have got to check out iOS Today with me, Micah Sargent, and Rosemary Orchard. We cover all things iOS and help you get the most out of your devices.